Hello and welcome to Legalbytes. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. We don't give legal advice, but we do talk about how the law works and try to look into our crystal ball to see how things might turn out. If you're enjoying this on YouTube, we'd love it if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, all the great YouTube-y stuff. And if you want to listen while out and about, we're now offering our live streams in podcast form where you can leave a rating and review. Links are in the description below, as well as to our clips channel where you can find some of the best clips taken from our live streams. Otherwise, if you want to catch me elsewhere, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so on Locals, Patreon, or by becoming a YouTube member, or by buying some really awesome Legalbytes merch. Again, all links are in the description below. And with that said, let's get into it. What do you guys think?
I'm smashing the like button just for that intro. I'm literally smashing it so hard. Also, I will tell somebody I will always fall for animal emotional manipulation 100% of the time, every time. So good job, Alita. That's amazing.
That is 100% why I did that. Because I'm like, a lot of this stuff is like, it's kind of like boring administrative stuff. So I might as well spice it up with little kittens and puppies. Why not?
I might go that route, but I might try a more threatening approach. Subscribe or the puppy gets it.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I'll do it too.
If we don't get to 50% ratio of likes to viewers, that's it. It's over.
This puppy dies.
Oh, no.
I'll film it. I'll film it and broadcast it unless we play in the arms of the angels in the background.
Sarah McLachlan implodes.
Oh,
this is on you, chat. This is on you.
What's up, guys? Good to see everybody in the chat.
Good to see everybody. Good to see you guys as well. So for everybody watching, that was a new intro that I decided to try out. I made that this week just to sort of see if I can spice things up, introduce things in kind of a fun way. So let me know what you guys think about that. And yeah, maybe because it is a little bit long, but I feel like it's hopefully entertaining enough.
Not too long. I didn't go to bed. It was good.
Okay. I especially personally, I think my favorite part is the image at the end of the guy jumping and then belly flopping into the pool.
I did notice a significant deficit of uncivil law. I didn't notice my name mentioned. I didn't notice me being pictured. I didn't notice references to how great I am. So there's some work to be done there.
Well, see, yeah, what you've got to do, Alita, is you have to actually substitute that lax picture with a picture of you belly flopping from on high. I think that would be hilarious, and that would really bring him in.
Like maybe if I can get somebody to superimpose my face on that guy's body.
Diving into the law.
Yeah. Oh man. So fun times. And we have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about today because there's just been, it's funny because it's like we go through periods of time where it's like all, super serious criminal law, like it was, Rittenhouse and Potter and Arbery, like all at the same time. And right now I feel like it's like, at least for my channel anyway, it's like all about pop culture right now. We've got some COVID stuff, with Novak Djokovic, but aside from that, I mean, he's still in the entertainment world, right? Like he's a tennis player. So yeah, so we have some super spicy stuff. We've got Britney Spears, because even though her conservatorship is technically over, there's still fights over the money that's in the conservatorship estate. So there was a hearing yesterday on that got pretty fiery, apparently. And then we've got the Cardi B trial that's going on right now. She's suing a YouTuber named Tasha K for defamation, and that got super spicy this week. And I personally am convinced that not only is Cardi B going to win, but she's probably going to wipe Tasha K on the floor and take her for all the money that she's worth because of the testimony that's come out at trial this week. And then we've got like I said, we've got Novak Djokovic, and then we've got we've got one more, which is Drake in the rumored hot sauce lawsuit.
The hot sauce, yeah, that one's spicy. That one I like.
It is
Indeed.
quite literally
Indeed.
spicy. It is quite literally spicy. And that one is it is still a rumor. We don't know if they're actually, if there is a lawsuit that is pending, or if there even is a person, another person aside from Drake involved in this story, whether it's actually true. But
I believe 100%.
What brand of hot sauce is best?
This is
the only question I want to know. Do we experiment with other ones, or
you need to go all the way up. Like, we're talking like at least sriracha. I mean, possibly if you got a ghost pepper, a Carolina Reaper. I mean, anything you can get up there that makes it a little bit too hot to handle.
Well, so we can get into this one first then, since we're already kind of getting into it. But this was a story that came out, I think actually last week, where apparently there was an Instagram drama channel or drama account that reported that there was an allegation against Drake, that he had an encounter with an Instagram model and that he used protection. Afterwards, he went to the bathroom and he removed that protection, tied it off, threw it away. And then she ran in there right afterwards to try to use that so that she could, I'll leave a little bit of a gap.
Turkey based?
Well, okay. Yeah, you could say that. I was just going to say, present herself in such a way that she could end up getting, filing for a paternity suit from him. Let's just say that.
Now, Alita, that doesn't make any sense. Surely a woman would never do such a thing in any way, right?
Surely there's no reason. There's no reason why the NBA put out a memorandum to all of its players on just this fact, literally telling them to dispose of the aforementioned protection after use immediately because of exactly such thing. There's no way it ever happens.
A woman would never violate the fundamental right of a man to choose when to have a child, and a man having made that decision not to have a child, they would never interfere with that fundamental right, Alita, right? For money or monetary reasons, right, Alita?
I can't.
I demand you be accountable for your entire sex, Alita.
I cannot be held accountable for any other woman.
Are you presuming?
I did say the word sex. I said sex.
Okay. Fair.
Yes.
I cannot be held responsible for what any other woman does, no more than either of you can be held responsible for what any other man does, correct?
Well, if you've paid any attention at all, it seems like every day I'm being held accountable for what every other man has or could theoretically do. The entirety of patriarchy, blah, 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 something, white supremacy, blah, 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 racism.
I identify as super straight, so I have nothing to do with uncivil's bigotry. I mean, literally, as part of the LGBTQA++ community with my super straightness, I don't know what to say about it. However,
you're so LGBTQ, you went round again, and now you're straight.
Fully circled. It is something that literally, I don't know about you guys, but we studied this in estates law. We actually studied. There's a case in estates law. Literally, you're nodding your head, so you know this one.
I vaguely remember this in law school, but basically, I mean, the courts are not quite sympathetic to a man in that kind of a situation because regardless,
are you saying that family courts are sometimes not fully sympathetic to men, and perhaps there have been even instances where men have been, shall we say, raped, even when they're minors, and then they're still forced to pay paternity payments anyway? Are you saying this is all news to me?
That's shocking information. I never speak about this consistently.
Also, I can't think of any reason people might become misogynist. It's glowing. I can't think of any correlation at all. Why might there be some misogyny from these things that I'm just learning about now for the first time?
So for if anyone can't read through that sarcasm, under the law, typically in most jurisdictions, if not all jurisdictions, where there's a situation like that, where the man did everything that he could to try to prevent it, to try to prevent a pregnancy from happening. If the woman actually goes and tries to circumvent his efforts to prevent that from happening, and then she tries to target him for that purpose, courts are not going to care. That the man is still going to be held responsible for upbringing for that child, at least financially speaking. So I don't disagree. It's not exactly fair. It's not. But that's just the way that the law has kind of shook out. And I think that the reason for that is because the courts are looking at from the perspective of the care of the child, really, from the child's perspective, rather than from either
though it violates
parent.
the fundamental autonomy of the man who we don't care about.
Well, to be fair though, this law hasn't changed since. I mean, the law regarding this whole sort of
I don't want to be fair though.
This
I want to be neutral.
I know. Look, I'll give you a hatefulness, okay? This whole area of law hasn't been touched in almost over 100 years. There's been no fundamental change in the way this law has worked, despite the fact that we've had a fundamental change in how relationships work. Ladies were not looking inside of protection, back in the 1920s and, trying to sperm jack Charlie Chaplin. That is not something we saw happening at all, ever.
At least it wasn't reported anyway.
Yeah, and it also wasn't technologically feasible. Now it's feasible. So, I think there needs to be enough.
Her complaint, so let me just make sure I got this 100% correct. Her complaint is, I tried to turkey base myself, and it turns out he put hot sauce in it, and it irritates me, and I want to sue for the negligence, and I'm supposed to in any way care about her? Is that what's going on?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me show you the total amount of fucks I give with this picture of this barren field over here.
Tell us, Kurt.
Also, is there any way I can put her? Is there any way I can put her in jail for some sort of fraud or something? Like, how can I make? How about theft? It was no, I guess it was disposed of.
No, because that's the whole point is that the whole point is once you shoot, your property rights are gone. You have zero.
I have property rights in the condom though.
Not when you abandon it.
But did I though? It was in the trash to be collected.
It tossed in the trash. Yeah.
Well, but here's
so you should always flush it, is basically what we're told, even though it says not to do that on the wrapper.
That's what the NBA says. Just dispose of it immediately.
Yeah, but legally speaking, I mean, I'm actually looking at this from two possible claims, right? There's negligence, and there's also, I would think that, not to say that this would be viable, but you could have an analysis for an intentional tort as well, because there could be the argument of like, well, he's intending this to be kind of
the fact that there's even some hypothetical world where she could possibly theoretically recover, as you might be able to determine from my attitude, is not pleasing me.
So wait, hold on. No, you're saying, Alita, you're saying intentional infliction of emotional distress. So that's like pretty much you're saying it's like a trap, like it's like some sort of Home Alone style sexual trap.
In a way, in assault, pretty much, because not intentional infliction of emotional distress, but remember in law school when we all took property, and there was there was probably a point where you guys went over defense of property, right? Like what you can and can't do to defend property. So having a spring-loaded gun guarding your property against trespassers is not something that you're allowed to do. So you could have an analysis that's along those lines in this case, where the spring-loaded gun is the hot sauce that's there to protect the property. So
last time I checked, Alita, and look, I understand there's a delicate pH balance. We're not going there, but last time I checked, the hot sauce is not going to be lethal to the plumbing. I mean, it's not going to cause, if that is lethal if that causes some sort of lethal effect, that's on you, girl. That's not on the Tabasco, right? I mean, and also maybe you have a claim against Tabasco. I don't know about Drake. Like what are they putting in there? So some off-label stuff?
It's a products liability case.
There we go. Now we're
I was injured by trying to put his used remnants inside of me against his will. This is the kind of thing that leads to claims by people against me that I am misogynist, when I'm just like, this is so broken. And it's so wrong, and it makes
old MGTOW Kurt.
I tell you what, man. Tell me. Yeah. This is where my perception. People perceive me one way, and I'm like, I don't know if it's that true. It's like, why can't I just get righteously angry at her and be like, I want to burn it all down? Why is that not a fair reaction to it?
Because you're a bigot for doing that, Kurt. Come on, you're not.
Alita, am I wrong for saying burn it all down?
I mean,
she deserves to suffer in every way that I can't even begin to contemplate.
No,
I mean, emotionally, I understand. I understand the what's behind that that kind of a reaction. But I mean, it's just that's just not where the law is, unfortunately, for your case.
Yeah. And it's going to take a point at which we understand that in a lot of ways, when we see these kind of rows and these blowouts and how we have these frictions between the genders and tensions in dating and marriage and all this is part of it. The law is part of it, whether or not we like it or not. And at some point, we're going to have to update these things if we want to, make relations amenable between the genders.
I may not be the right lawyer for her, I think, is the conclusion I think we've reached at this point. It may not be the case for me. Maybe Drake could give me a call, but I'm not so sure about her.
I'm not even sure I could represent Drake because I'd get fired up about it too. Literally.
Yeah. So, but
here's the hot sauce. Here's the hot sauce in a condom. Can you show us how the injury happened again, please?
That's another thing is you'd have to get into the details of the actual injury there to show the damages, right? Because that's an element of whether it's an intentional tort, like an assault or a negligence that you're
I'd
alleging.
love to do that deposition
There's
against her. It'd be
damages.
great. So you went into the bathroom and you saw the used condom. Yes. You picked it up. Yes. Well, then what did you do? Why did you do that? What was
you're missing on
what
a
was
detail.
your purpose behind it?
On civil, it's like so where was it? The trash can. Oh, okay. What else was in the trash can? Oh, there was some napkins, some used tampons, some other stuff like that. Like what else?
So it wasn't exactly sanitary.
Yeah. And then
you decided to pick this thing up and you decided to try to apply it on yourself. What was your purpose in doing so? Why were you trying to do this?
Well, also one of the big things here is that, I mean, we don't know what brand he was allegedly using, assuming that this story is true, because we're not even sure that it's true.
He was rocking a Magnum? Is that what we're talking about here?
No. I mean, if he used hot sauce, whatever brand it is, generally speaking, that's going to be a certain color that usually is not a certain color that you would find. So she would also have noticed that something there is off.
That's very true. That's very true. Because I mean, you sometimes there's like green hot sauces, but regardless of whether it's red or green, it's not a natural color. unless you're into using some weird alien condoms or something weird stuff. I mean, I don't know. No judgment. I am a zero judgment. This is a zero judgment channel. Legal Minds.
I'm in a lot of judgment right now.
we bring uncivil law here for the judgment.
Oh man.
But
you made me feel bad for Drake. That's where we're at right now.
And I do not like Drake. I mean, Drake
no, that's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. Why am I ready to take up the charge for Drake? It's like, man, Lord Jesus, it made me feel bad for him. It's like ready to defend him to the end of the world.
So as far as the legal analysis on this rumor is concerned, like even if there was a lawsuit that was potentially filed, not even
I'm covering it. I just want you to know it's going to be on my channel.
You're like me.
It will be gavel to gavel coverage every step of the way. We will cover every part of the complaint and the response, every step on
shot by
law.
shot.
Yeah, shot by shot. Yeah, very literally. Good time.
You'll find your way into the deposition rooms so you can can live stream the whole thing. Every deposition.
I'll say she's a hoe a lot, and then we'll see how that goes over.
Talking about your channel on some, it's like, God.
Did I mention I just got a content strike?
It's like,
oh man,
and one.
Oh man.
But I mean, to be very serious though, I mean, this is something that look, I have a lot of people I speak to who are like entrepreneurs and single guys that talk to me all the time. And this is a serious concern for people, like regular, people who have their stuff together, is they do not want to get involved with people And it really does impact their relationships because they know that there's girls like that out there that are trying to do things like this. It's very insane.
I definitely understand all of those concerns, because there are people out there that are like this, and regardless of whether or not this whole story is true,
we need to round them up. We need to put a brand on them so that they can be seen as a warning sign.
Okay, scarlet letter. Scarlet letter C.
Oh man. And I am also adding you guys.
As Alita desperately tries to maintain some sort of semblance for her chat. It's not happening, Alita, not today.
Oh, I knew what was going on with bringing this story on.
Yeah.
The only thing I might be worse than Joe on this one. It's because
the agenda. Well, no, me and you. It's like the female agenda. It's a problem.
Oh man, so it's this is definitely a very exciting topic that we could say. It's a very spicy topic that we can say.
Hey, Alita, how do you feel about hot sauces? Since you like food, are you a spicy food fan?
Me?
Yes.
Yes, I love spicy food.
That is a very not basic thing about you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, when it comes to food, I pride myself on being an adventurous eater. So, so spicy, sweet, whatever. Hey, I've even had a live clam before.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was when I was in college, when I was on semester at sea for a semester, where we were on this old cruise ship that was turned into like a floating campus, so to speak. We stopped in a bunch of different countries around the world. One of them was Namibia. And so I was with some fellow students that became some very close friends of mine. And we had a tour guide that we found, and his name was Ernst. We called him Uncle Ernst. And he showed us all around for like really only a couple days. We wished it could have been longer, but he took us to the beach and he showed us how to dig up live clams with our feet, and it was crazy. And then it was like this ginormous clam that each of us picked up. And I made a joke. I was like, man, because in Southern California, you can get in San Clemente, for example, you can get steamed clams on the San Clemente pier, and it's like delicious. It's one of my favorite things to get. And so I was like, man, I wish we could steam these and have them for dinner. And he was like, oh, I can actually just crack them open right now. People eat them like this. And we were like, what? Are you serious? And so he took his pocket knife out, he cracked it open, and he rinsed it in the ocean. And he was like, who's first? So then we each ate one.
I love that. That's great. I mean, I remember going out as a kid and having dolphin that we just fish out, or mahi. We just fish out and they'd sashimi it right there. So in Korea, I sent you a video in the private chat. I had this thing called Sannakji. If you want to play that video, it's a 1-minute video. It's very short. You just have to play the first 10 seconds of it.
Okay.
But tell me, I'm curious if you would
try
this.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You gotta play this. So
it started automatically playing. So whoa.
Had this.
I'll share this. Give me 1 second. Let me share this. Okay. Whoa, guys.
This is not my video, but I had the exact same dish. This is about 2 months ago. It was on a dare, on a date. But your boy Legal Mindset doesn't back down.
This is adventurous eating right here.
Down.
All right.
You'll back down?
Octopus.
Do you guys hear the video?
Chap, are you gonna join me?
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh.
Look at it move.
I know. This is Sannakji. It's very traditional octopus sashimi.
I'm thrilled for you and your traditions. Just stay well away from me.
Woo!
It moves all the way down.
I'm sure it does.
Oh my God.
Is this recording? Am I supposed to be taking a picture?
Wow.
That was my face too. Anyways, I hope to be doing more food challenges while I'm here.
Woo! Oh my God.
Maybe I'll film it next time.
Is that already chopped up, you said?
They chop it live. So that it's live. They chop it and then you eat it fresh. they'll keep a lot of fish or squids or whatever in the tanks outside. So you're kind of like, yeah, I want that one. He looked at me weird. And then just like chop it up and give it to you.
He looked at me weird. That's, oh my God. I mean, when I had the live clam, it was also like waving goodbye, like right before we bit into it. So, you know, there's that similar kind of weirdness, but for some reason with this squirming in so many different directions on the plate, like that just, that seems so weird. But I would do it. If it's a
you gotta try
custom,
it. I mean, look,
if
you
it's a
try
local
it
custom
once.
and people actually eat it there. Like it's not like a weird, I mean, it could be kind of weird, but like if that's something that people legitimately do eat there, I would do it. I would try it. Kurt disagrees. Oh man. Yeah, fun times. STFUFFS says it's not like the dad. He's talking about he or she, actually. I don't know if STFUFFS is anyway. They said that this is a super chat for anyone that is listening on the podcast. They said that as regards the Drake situation, it's not like the dad is an injured third party without fraud, i.e. the condom saucer. They are each accessory to a baby. He just lacks an escape clause.
I don't know what the point is with this. I'm trying to understand.
I disagree with the premise.
I think the point here that they're saying is that the dad isn't a 100% innocent party there.
That's where I have this is the biggest issue with this, and this is the biggest issue that the reason people get into fights about this is saying that, and to say that someone consents. This is my whole issue. Consenting to intercourse is not consenting to reproduction anymore, and we've already acknowledged that there's a fundamental right for a female to make that separation between intercourse and reproduction. But we have not acknowledged that same fundamental right for a male. So once again, really disagree with this statement and also disagree with the law. So yeah.
Kurt, do you have any other thoughts you want to share?
I just totally disagree with the premise. In this fact scenario where the person who is the biological contributor does not even intend or desire or makes every effort to not be a biological contributor to the point where they're throwing it away and dousing it with hot sauce. I disagree completely with the premise / initial conclusion that they're not an injured party. They're an injured party. They is it not an injury to have a child brought into the world that you not only didn't want, but made every effort to try to avoid? And how's that not an emotional burden on you for things that you didn't? Disagree with the premise, disagree with the initial conclusion. It's all crap.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great one. If anything, it's an infliction of emotional distress on the man, because the thought of being able to be put in jail, not just, found responsible, liable, all this stuff, but put in jail for failure to follow through, for contempt of court, for anything involving the family proceedings. I mean, so much. And then nobody wants to be a deadbeat dad. I mean, anybody who thinks that people grow up and saying, I want to be a deadbeat dad, that's not what anybody wants to be. It's so much.
Well, usually deadbeat dads don't want to be dads. That's why they're deadbeats.
Let me ask you, Alita, do you, and you don't have to know names, but have you ever known anyone personally who has, let's say, trapped a man deliberately trapped a man as like maybe getting pregnant so that they'll marry them or stay with them? Or has you ever been in anyone with any conversations where that has been a thing that's passed through your circle of knowledge? I've
come across couples that tried to make things better in their relationship by having a child.
Well,
that usually doesn't work.
That's different because that's a mutual decision. It may be a bad decision, but at least it's a mutual decision.
But I've never
personal experience with that.
But I've heard tell of or at least rumors and innuendos of women who will know other women are planning to trap a man or pierce the protection or whatever, and they then giggle amongst themselves about, rather than say this is evil to be thwarted. But maybe I'm getting bad information.
Oh no, that firsthand happens.
I don't doubt that exists.
How many men have you trapped, Alita?
As well. One.
Hello, one
I'm
and done,
married
baby. One and done. High five. If Manny like comes in off screen, like just his hand, you know.
Yeah. So no, I've never done that. I don't know of any people in my circle that have done that. I don't know. Maybe it's just like the friends that I choose don't tend to do that kind of stuff.
That's probably going a long way to it. I believe that because I believe, and from what I know, and I say this genuinely, that you are in fact a good person, and so I believe it's totally possible that's never happened.
Got you fooled.
Huh?
I said she's got you fooled.
Maybe she's got me fooled, but she's doing a good job at it. But then again, women are good at that. So okay, we can go back to the bitterness.
Misogynist Kurt. MGTOW Kurt.
Bitter Kurt.
I already changed my screen name. I don't know what more I can do.
Oh man. But yeah, I don't. So, but I don't doubt that it happens. I'm sure it happens, right? I mean,
100% happens.
Yeah.
I literally was seeing a girl who told me she did that with another guy who wasn't even in the picture. It was really weird. It's a long story. Not going to details, but I mean, she literally said, "I'm doing it with this guy. I intentionally hooked up with him to get pregnant with the intention of getting with him because I want him to be the father of my kid." And he said he was not interested in it, and she knowingly did it. I mean,
I remember reading an article. It's been a little bit now, but I remember reading an article when people were talking about more effective male birth controls like chemicals or whatever. And I remember reading an article from whatever magazine saying, well, sometimes women want to get pregnant. And I'm thinking to myself, this is because they're talking about a hypothetical universe in which men have the ability to take some sort of pill or something to prevent pregnancy. And it's like, well, that's not fair to the women who want to get pregnant. I'm thinking to myself, that is the stupidest article I ever read in my life.
Well, no. But Kurt, that is now the standard in a lot of places. It's misrepresentation. For example, if you have in many countries too, it's actionable if you've had a vasectomy and you fail to disclose that before you enter into a marriage, because that's a material factor.
Is it true the other way around if she's had her tube ties or no?
No, it's not usually. Once again, it's kind of weird. It's weird. It's weird.
And I don't know if this is true, but I believe it's true that France outlawed DNA tests because too many of them were coming back as it not being the father. Huh?
Britain also won't. No, sorry. France outlawed it. Britain will not tell the father unless the mother wants to tell them. So they literally will not disclose whether they're the father, because they say that it will lead to a spat of fathers getting angry and not taking care of the kids and perhaps violence and stuff like that, because men are toxic and violent and immediately going to kill somebody.
Isn't that just complete bullshit? We're actively hiding this knowledge. And at least in France, preventing them from getting knowledge. God bless you in USA, where you can get DNA tests off the shelf at your local CVS.
However, if the time has elapsed too long in between the time you get that DNA test and you've been taking care of that kid as if it's your kid, it doesn't matter whether you get the DNA test.
It's even worse than that because of some
states like adverse possession, but for babies.
Yeah. It's worse than that because of presumptions. I think, at least in some states, because it's like, if your name is on the birth certificate, you're done. So, which is done instantly. So,
and that's why they try to get you to sign it. So if the boyfriend is there, they try to get the boyfriend to sign the birth certificate. They really do put the pressure on. They're like, yo, we need somebody to sign this. Oh, don't worry, you can fix it later. Oh, I don't know who the dad is. You can fix it later. Just go ahead and do it. That was another big issue that I dealt with a different girl who had the wrong guy sign the birth certificate. Why would they?
I'm going to ask a question I already know the answer to, and I want you to tell me the answer to it anyway, so I can get pissed at the answer I already know. But why would they do that? Why would the hospital do that when they know that's not the right answer? Tell me the answer I already know so I can get mad.
Because they don't want the state to be responsible. Kurt, come on. They don't want it to be a ward of the state. They do not. There's a high incentive on the part of the state for children to not be wards of the state and for them to have fathers that they can milk for every dime. I mean, that's the incentive of the state. So
that's something that I'm less.
So I didn't realize today's stream was let's make Kurt even more misogynist. So that all the accusations of misogyny that he's ever suffered will be even more true. Let's just tell him all the evils that are out there in the world, so he could go on his stream and be like,
well, that's okay. We're just starting. This is
you're ruining my brand.
This is the warm up, Kurt.
Good.
Yeah, well, hold on. We're gonna go into Cardi B and how she was and how she was drugging and stealing from men. Is that the case? Because that one would have been great.
Yes, but let's get through.
Is that the woman who said that there's some whores in their house, and since she was in the house, must have been referring to herself, so she is in fact a whore? Okay, great. I mean, she was in the video as she's singing it, right? She said there's some whores in the house. She's in the video in the house. She must be referring to herself, so she's a whore.
So. Before we do that, let me get a couple super chats.
What's wrong with logical deductions and legal mindset today?
It's great.
Okay, 200 Watt Studio says, Kurt incited me to violence in videos 19, 22, and 23, referring to your strikes on your channel. I'm so sorry. 200 Watt Studio also said, my girl asked why we were stopping at Del Taco before our date. I explained I had to get the Inferno sauce to rub on my member before.
Oh man, I do like Del Taco. I will say Del Taco's passable. It's better than
Del
Taco
Taco is better than Taco Bell, in my opinion.
I'll say that.
Much better. STFU FFS says, 1, I'm a dude. Thank you for clarifying. 2, last SC wasn't regarding Drake. Oh, the super chat wasn't about Drake. 3, sex without a glove is in fact de facto consent to a baby. I'm pretty red pill, but gloveless sex equals assumed risk. Well, that
but it wasn't. But it wasn't.
I can understand it, but that wasn't the case here.
That's not the point here. Yeah, and I get what you're saying. Like,
yeah,
I understand that principle. Yes, that I would agree with. Right in the modern era.
If you're taking on that much of a risk, then I can see. Yeah, you probably should be held responsible if you weren't taking other precautions that you
ripped off my idea. That's
what all of LawTube does. Kurt, are you not up on the LawTube on how we roll?
Okay.
All right, let's talk about Cardi B. So she has a case against a YouTuber named Tasha K that is alleging defamation. And the defamatory statements by this YouTuber are pretty crazy, right? There's allegations of STDs, and I can't even remember what else, but I mean that alone that was
the key one, was the STD allegation.
I think that was like the big one, right? Because so when we're talking about defamation, there are certain elements that you have to meet, right? So number one is that the person, in this case, Tasha K has to have made a statement that was not true. Number two, they have to have made that statement to at least one other person. They've published it, right? So talking on her YouTube channel is definitely doing that. Number three, they have to that the statements have to have caused reputational harm to the person that was being talked about. And number four, their what is it? Oh my gosh, I had these memorized. But anyway, so it has to have created reputational harm, and then that basically has to cause damages. So that's the last element. But when we're talking about some types of lies versus other types of lies, some are so bad that they create that it's like the court will basically just assume that there's reputational harm because it's like anyone. Yes. And that's called defamation per se. So when we're talking about statements made about STDs, that's generally speaking one of those subjects that is going to be defamation per se. So it's like you've got two elements here that don't even need to necessarily be met. But in this case, they probably are going to be met anyway. Also because of the fact that it's just like really bad claims, right? So Tasha K had, I think it was like 28 videos or 26 videos that she made that were like just on Cardi B, and she was making a lot of misstatements about her having to do with STDs and these other allegations that she was making, or these statements of fact that she was making. And apparently Cardi B's legal team sent a cease and desist. She ignored it. And then I think she was quoted as saying that she wiped her rear end with it. I don't know if she literally did that, but that was at least kind of a statement that she was making about the cease and desist. And this week they've been at trial, and some really damaging testimony has come out.
So hold on, this is actually gone to trial.
It is at trial right now.
So this is like, so procedurally, and this is something that for me, and I've never been personally involved in this, but just knowing other people that have, one of the main strategies with defamation suits is often to handle them, and I think for most suits in general is to handle them pre-trial, right? So you're going to get to the point of summary judgment, you're going to get to the point of motion to dismiss, summary judgment, maybe injunctive relief, and then once you've gotten that, you just kind of settle it, get rid of it, just resolve it. So it going to trial is something that frankly doesn't look good for any side, because, you know, here's the problem. The problem in defamation is that truth is the absolute defense. So not only do you have to be deposed, you know, I think we're hearing about Cardi B. I don't know if she's taken the STD test yet, but I mean, that may be an actual thing, because now you can force her to take an STD test, because if she indeed has an STD, then it is not defamation.
In this particular case, she took, not only did she take STD tests, but she not only, and then on top of that, not only handed over her medical records to the other side, I believe she also made them public. And so everyone at this point knows that she is cleared of all STDs. So
now.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
after like 5 kilos of penicillin. No, I'm joking.
I mean, there are some that just linger for a very long time and forever. You can't really get rid of all of them, right? And I can't remember exactly what kind of diseases they were that Tasha K was saying that she had, but she was saying that she had some. So now another thing about defamation is that when we're talking about famous people, and Cardi B is pretty much a household name, you know, it's hard to know who doesn't know about Cardi B, even if you're less like in tune with the hip hop scene. Generally speaking, people know who Cardi B is. So because of the fact that she is a household name, she's a famous person, she's a celebrity, you have to prove that she or her legal team, they have to prove not only that the statement was made and that the statement was false, but that it was also made not only negligently, but with actual malice. Basically meaning that Tasha K had to have made the statement with either knowing that it was incorrect or with reckless disregard, basically saying, I really don't care if this is true or false, I'm going to say it anyway. And that's such a high burden for any plaintiff to show. And this week, guess what? Testimony came out. Tasha K admitted on the stand. She said, yep, I pretty much knew that what I was saying was probably not correct. And I said it anyway, because that's my business. That's my business model. This is what I do. And she had absolutely no remorse, allegedly, you know, according to people that are in the courthouse that are reporting on Twitter. So let me see. Actually,
That makes it more challenging to legally defend, I have to say. Yeah. Yes, I knew it was false when I said it. It was my goal and purpose to say the false things.
See, that's the problem there, and that's when you actually get people winning. And that's how, like, for example, with Veritas and the New York Times, they may win because you actually have correspondence from the Times saying, yeah, we know this is false, we're going to say it anyways, right? Because they know better. And in this case, this is one where if she just shut her mouth, I mean, how are you going to actually know whether or not somebody has an STD? If someone is claiming that they're engaging in, fleshy relations with every person on the earth, it should be a safe presumption that in the course of those relations, they may have contracted something. You can make that defense, right? That's something that you might know or not know. Okay, if she's somebody who openly admits that she's sleeping with random people, including old men that were paying her money. I mean, that's her own words, not anybody else's words. Those are Cardi B's words. And so during the course of that,
I want lock-on. I want groupies.
I mean, let me put it this way. Just so you know, the way that if you go in to get an STD test more than I think once every 6 months, they code you as, like high risk of sexual activity or high risk of having an STD. So it's not that high of a barrier here.
Yeah. But I'm sharing my screen here. This is so Dennis Byron. He owns a media company that's like about that they talk a lot about the hip hop world, and he's been actually in the courtroom every day and tweeting about it and making video updates about it. And since this is a federal case and there's no publication of the trial court proceedings, And he said here, this is on January 12th, bombshell testimony. Tasha K also admitted under direct examination that she knew what she reported about Cardi B using drugs, prostitution, and her having herpes was probably untrue, but she posted the video anyway to make money. I mean, that is the definition of actual malice.
She said herpes specifically. Oh yeah. Damn.
So
that's not helpful. No, that's that makes proving the actual malice much easier.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
How will you ever prove what you actually knew? Here is what I knew. How will you prove I recklessly disregarded? Recklessly disregarded.
Although they did say it was probably untrue.
But that's reckless.
That's
that
reckless.
is being reckless.
Yeah,
so even without having actual, like, she didn't say I knew that this was not true. She said I knew that it was probably not true. And that, you know, I still wanted to say it anyway. Like I said, this is a textbook definition of recklessness for actual malice.
Now, on the plus side, if it is in fact true, she still wins, which was an earlier point, right? So if you can get Cardi B and be like, because we know that she has a clean STD panel apparently now, or so because I say this because it's all levels of hearsay, but let's go with it. Apparently it's a clean panel now. Has it always been a clean panel? Have you ever had an STD? Have you ever used drugs? Have you ever engaged in prostitution? So even though she believes it to be false, if it is in fact true, she can still win. So there's still hope somewhere for Team Tasha K.
I mean, okay, that's fair. That's fair. That you know, it could be.
Truth is an absolute defense, even if you are an idiot.
Truth is an absolute defense. I will.
Well,
and
she will say, I think she's admitted to using drugs before. I mean, now whether she's not currently, but I think Cardi B has admitted to previous drug use. So I think.
I don't know. I haven't seen that reported, but if you've
why don't you
seen
say
that,
it definitively? I know for a fact. Why don't you say that? See, so we can get you
No, I'm cool, bro. I'm cool. Allegedly.
On next week's Latest in the Law, Cardi B sues Legal Mindset.
Here are some things Legal Mindset told me in a private chat that we had. Please call me.
Your new channel will be named Benedict Arnold Law. You know, it's like first for Kata now at two.
But yeah, so
climbing to the top of the law pyramid by betraying my friends. Excellent.
Why not, right? So, but anyway, like I said, this case has been pretty nuts because, I mean, number one, the allegations are pretty wild on their own. Number two, I mean, the fact that they are able to have this testimony come out. I mean, I don't know how this didn't settle for one thing. I mean, maybe Cardi B was just so pissed that she was like, nope, I want this to go all the way to trial because I 100% know that this is false. And I want everyone to know that this is false.
So Lita, there's actually like I've talked to entertainment lawyers that do this for musicians, especially. There's a guy I know in Miami, does a lot of reggaeton artists, and they will end up suing each other. But they do it for a chilling effect. So she will do it so that the next person will think twice before they make these statements. And there'll be a chilling effect that Cardi B will actually take you to court for this, unlike other people. So go target somebody else if you want to chase clout who may not sue you.
Yeah. Well, I will say though, that this is one of those, I don't know, it's a particularly egregious case. So I think it's worthy of this kind of treatment. Also, another thing that she was apparently saying on the stand, Tasha K was saying on the stand, was that they were asking her about, like, whether she felt badly about it, I think. And she apparently was indicating absolutely no remorse on the stand. Like, she was just like, nope, this is my business model. This is my business, this is what I do. And this is the price that you need to pay. Because this is just, you're a famous person, et cetera, which is not going to play well for a jury at all, especially when Cardi B has also testified in this trial that she had suicidal thoughts as a result of this whole mess, that she, she had some really serious mental health issues following and as a result of this whole onslaught of all of these videos by this relatively big YouTube blogger. Thomas says Rachel Maddow defense time.
What is the Rachel Maddow defense? I'm forgetting here.
So Rachel Maddow and also I believe what's his name? Tucker Carlson also used the same kind of defense. And I think they both were successful. But they were so Tucker Carlson was sued by Dominion, the guys that were in charge of the election, the voting machines, right?
Okay.
And I guess because of some statements that he made about that those machines were faulty or fraudulent or something like that. And so they sued him for defamation. And so his defense and Rachel Maddow used a similar defense in a defamation case against her that basically said what I do on TV is not journalism. It's entertainment, and any reasonable viewer would know that what I'm saying is absolutely outrageous. So no reasonable viewer would actually take what I'm saying as fact. So it's kind of a crazy defense to use because I mean I don't know
for those
realistically
people,
all
for
viewers.
Those people, yes. I mean, if it was like, for example, old school Jon Stewart or Colbert or something like that, I don't watch Trevor Noah. I think he's a hack, or any of the new guys. But I mean, the older comedy, I remember watching that. Okay, yeah, if they're doing something in a sarcastic way, okay, yeah, of course, that's like comedy. It's not meant to be taken seriously, right? But Tucker and Rachel, they definitely present their information as facts. That's some bullshit.
Yeah. So but they were successful in getting those claims dismissed in each of their respective cases. So but I mean she could maybe try to use this defense. I don't know that the legal representation in this case has been particularly any good though, because they've also been getting into a lot of trouble from the judge from what it sounds like. For one thing,
if this was like a diss track, like, like for example, like, the old like Eminem style diss track. I mean, you're just coming in there, you're making fun of somebody, you're going in, like, you're just really just digging on them as part of a song. Like, then you've got sort of artistic expression, you've got a lot of things going on for you, so if you say, hey, and Cardi B has the herp or something like that, in a song, it's like, okay, no one's taking this seriously. I'm just smack talking her. But as part of a song, this is what we do. This is a diss track. But yeah. This way, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and in this case, I mean, if you see any of the video, I've seen just a few like just short clips from it, so I can't really say definitively my personal evaluations of her videos that are at the center of this litigation. But it does appear that she's got like, people that she's interviewing and asking about this stuff. Like it seems from the limited amount that I've seen, it seems like she's actually presenting this as facts. So that would be, it doesn't seem like she would be a very good candidate for the Rachel Maddow or the Tucker Carlson defense. So, yeah. So I really think that Cardi B is going to wring Tasha K dry for all of her money. That's my prediction in this particular lawsuit. I'm no Laracle, right? I'm no Nate the lawyer.
Hold on. Nate's streak is broken. He self-admits, and now he's got to reestablish himself.
He's got like a 98% win rate, though, right?
Saying, like, he's got to reestablish himself. He's got to reestablish himself. I love Nate. I give him the love for it, but.
Of course. STFU FFS says no reasonable person would watch Maddow, full stop. I mean, she has her specific audience, right?
The ratings are dead last in terms. I mean, like it's literally, if you look at any of them, they're just so far lower than all the other TV programs. And I think the other day there was the reason why they're all attacking Joe Rogan right now is because Joe Rogan's views are like 10x. I pulled it up on mine. He has 10x Rachel Maddow. That's why they're salty about it, because nobody's listening to their content. They'd rather listen to, Joe Rogan, who's having a more reasonable conversation.
Yeah. So
there's nothing that they couldn't just do the same thing. Why not? Since that model is working, why not just do that instead of being completely partisan hacks?
Because
having people on from multiple different perspectives, including people who might be doctors who might have some divergent opinions.
Because then they have to admit that they were wrong the entire time, and that to that.
It doesn't require you to be wrong to have people of different opinions. It's just like, well, this person disagrees with me. But I disagree
under their worldview, it definitely means they're wrong. If they, yeah.
Oh man!
And what's wrong? What's wrong with being wrong? I admit to being wrong sometimes because sometimes I am wrong.
I agree. I'm wrong.
I learn things, right? Sometimes I have to go on my channel and be like, geez, I was wrong about that, or I made a mistake in that legal proposition. Or, famously in the whole Arbery case where I got so despondent because of how wrong I was. But at least I was willing to admit I was wrong.
Wait, what were you despondent
even though it was a bit of a blow to my ego.
Just about the verdict, or?
No, I was wrong about the citizens arrest thing and the subcomponent of it being about the fleeing. Yeah, whether or not fleeing and escaping. Yeah, that was it. Because the statute said escape, and I somewhat famously said very strongly that in the way I parsed the law, that for it to be escape, it required you to be in some kind of custody. So because the citizens arrest statute said either it had to be a crime committed in your presence, which you're responding to, or it had to be a felony and escaping or attempting to escape. Then in my read of the law, okay, what does it mean to escape? The way I parse escape required you to be in some sort of custody. So it required you to be under arrest, or it required you to be in prison, or there were cases where I even found one case where a person was let out of prison for some period of time because reasons I don't exactly remember what, but it was like a short period of time, so maybe to attend a funeral, I don't know. And then they fled, so that was escape, because even though they weren't like in actual custody, they were still within the authority of the system. Blah blah.
Constructive custody.
Constructive custody, right? So I had this whole thing about in order for there to be escape, you have to be custody, and that legal argument completely fell apart because they kept talking about how, because there was no argument in my frame, if you interpret escape that way, that Arbery was escaping. It doesn't make any sense. He's leaving the scene of a crime. He might be fleeing, but he's not escaping. And so that apparently was not the appropriate interpretation of the law. And so when that argument basically fell through, there was a moment, and Legalbytes will remember, because I just became so crestfallen on stream, because I had done what I thought was an incredibly deep dive analysis. I thought I had done this incredibly thorough analysis of the law, and I'm like, I thought escape had a technical meaning. I was even going to the criminal code and using the criminal definition of escape in the criminal sense, which to me made sense because we're already talking about a criminal context, right?
Right.
And we're talking about citizens arrest. So to me, to go to the escape definition for what is the crime of escape made total logical sense for me because I'm already in a criminal sense. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go borrow that statute and import it over here. But apparently all that legal analysis was wrong. But I did such a deep dive analysis on all that when it finally collapsed, I was basically crestfallen and depressed on stream, but I was still willing to admit I was wrong because I learned something, even though it was a huge blow to my ego. So I was like, what is the problem for admitting when you're wrong, even if it's a huge blow to your ego?
Yeah. I mean,
it was I guess in the grand scheme, it's such a minor technical point because it's like, what did they mean by escape in this provision of this law in this context and blah, blah, blah.
But I understand still like, when you've invested that much time and effort and real, understanding into it, it can be hard to sort of have to sit back and be like, well, time for me to eat some crow.
That was a painful one.
Especially since we all have very strong opinions. So it's like you're yielding to, you're like, I gotta lose to these D-bags. No, I don't want to do that. I'm not taking this L. I'm going to try to come out swinging. But hey, look, sometimes somebody has a point and they're right or wrong. I mean, we get in all sorts of sides of it. And the other thing too is, Kurt, think about this, is that you may be wrong under the law now, but the law can change. The law can always change. And one day, old uncivil law may be justified.
Well, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that I've. There's just times where I just openly disagree with courts and their interpretations of law. So that could be the situation too. or like Sotomayor, because recently on our respective channels we've been giving her a little bit.
Wait,
of
are we
flack.
talking about her mask situation? Or are we talking about?
Well, I was talking about the time when it was an 8-1 decision, Sotomayor in dissent, in Kansas v. Glover, and I'm over here on Team Sotomayor, and I'm like, it's me and Sotomayor alone on a raft. Because I thought Sotomayor's analysis was correct in an 8-1 decision, which she was the only dissenting vote, and I'm like, well, it's me and Sotomayor. I'm not sure how this has happened, but this is where we are. So yeah, I mean, some weird things can happen sometimes.
Get me off that raft really quickly, please.
That's an interesting point. I know she's tracked a lot of flack recently.
It doesn't help when she says things like there's 100,000 kids in hospitals on ventilators. I'm like, God damn it.
That's which I think,
and that is a lie.
And I think at the same time, I think it's also healthy to recognize that these Supreme Court justices are also people as well. And this whole kind of like recent drama that's sort of come out of NPR and the Supreme Court about the masks in court.
Can we cover that? Really
which is
quickly?
apparently not a thing at all. Which doesn't surprise me.
I feel like that's juicy.
So let's talk about it.
I'm changing my name to Scottish Mask or something. Hold on. Talk about yourselves.
So there's been a lot of discussion about masks in the courtroom for the Supreme Court for oral arguments and whatnot, right? So obviously, most of these justices have been historically speaking, they've been older, right? And so they're kind of in this prime group of people that are most at risk for COVID symptoms. And apparently Justice Sotomayor is diabetic reportedly. And so she is particularly concerned about not getting COVID more so than other justices, possibly, at least that's reportedly, what people are saying. And there was an article out of NPR by, I think, Nina Totenberg that talked about how there was like drama among the justices because apparently Justice Sotomayor was wanting everyone to mask up. Justice Roberts asked everyone else to mask up to make her feel more comfortable. Justice Gorsuch said, no, I'm not going to wear a mask. And so as a result, Justice Sotomayor decided to stay home and attend the oral arguments remotely. That's what was reported. But now, yesterday, Chief Justice Roberts, apparently made a statement saying, no, I never asked everyone to do that. All of this is not true. I think Justice Sotomayor also said that none of that is true herself. NPR has doubled down on their story. So somebody's got some bad sources here. And I have to, and I have a feeling,
Nina Totenberg is pretty credible. I mean,
is she?
Well, at least in this context, I mean, Nina Totenberg has been a long time Supreme Court reporter.
She's been around since forever.
She's been there forever. So, I mean, she as people making reports go, you'd have to give her a little bit of credibility. She's been there attending oral arguments in person forever and a day. So there's a little bit of credibility coming from Nina Totenberg.
But she should know then, because I remember when I met with Justice Thomas came down to UF and we talked to all of us, at least their external position, the way they present themselves to other people is that we are all, you can argue that it's not this way behind the curtain. And maybe Nina knows better because she's there behind the curtain, or under the gavel, if you will. They say that they're all professionals. They all treat each other in a professional manner. They don't care about right or left. They all respect each other. They're professionals doing a job, and they all respect each other. And it's a happy, harmony behind the scenes. Now, you could think that's complete BS, and that's just the face they're putting out to maintain the neutrality of the court because that's very important. However, that's their position. So she should know, Nina should know that when you put Roberts in a position of saying, hey, Roberts, can you please confirm there's this giant partisanship on the court or not? He's going to say, no, of course not. I would never put people in a position where they have to choose which side of this debate to be on. And she should know better.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know exactly how the questions were asked and then answered. I just know what the responses to the questions were, basically. And I mean, I'm kind of with Kurt on this one because she's been around for such a long time, so she's a very well respected reporter. So it is pretty surprising to hear something so apparently false coming from her. And it's, I mean, hey, maybe that's just been, she's been flying under the radar this whole time, and shouldn't
then
be
you're
so
saying,
well respected. Who knows?
Then you're saying, because if she's not lying, then the Supreme Court is lying.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Which one is more believable? I mean,
yeah.
Are you asking me to choose between Roberts?
Yep.
And Nina Totenberg?
Yes, I am.
Roberts?
Right Roberts? Yep. Nina Totenberg.
Which one do you trust more?
Can I have a third option?
No, there's no choose Thomas, dissent. No.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting kind of situation. But it does, I mean, if Justice Sotomayor does have that particular squeamishness about or unease about getting COVID, honestly, at her age, I understand that, particularly with her having diabetes. People that have had more complications from COVID tend to be people that have other comorbidities. And I don't know if diabetics, if diabetes is one of those, but I would assume so.
Yeah, especially with weight being a corollary. Of course, you have diabetes, you're likely there's a weight factor, and that's definitely a comorbidity. I mean, look, no, I don't blame anybody for being terrified. The media has done a bang up job of terrifying everybody over the last 2 years, and they were doing a bang up job of continuing to terrify everybody. So, speaking of agendas to terrify people, what is going on? Good logic.
How are you guys?
Good, man.
Good.
You missed the earlier stream where we were having real fun.
Yeah, no fun now that you're here.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
I actually got
Oh, you got very quiet.
Yeah, I had an incoming call there for a second, which we declined. So, because I don't need to save money in car insurance. So the these are the only people call me. Yeah. I was watching Closing Arguments in the Chandler Halderson case.
Mm.
Oh, did they actually have him? I thought they had a motion to get rid of him.
No, they had closing arguments. I tuned in the middle. I was like, I need to check out a little bit like what's happening at the end of this, because I was like, did the defense present any witnesses at all, or they just like
no, they didn't.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, yeah. So that was just like a disaster. That was such a disaster. First of all, it was a disaster because I had to watch on Law and Crime, which
we could talk about that drama too.
Yeah,
we're talking about all the tea today.
Right. Yeah, so I had to bring out my law and crime pink pom poms. Go Law and Crime, go Law and Crime. So yeah, I was watching there, and I was so upset at myself for not streaming that today, because I was like, you know what? These closing arguments they require a very serious attorney breakdown, because this was a disaster. I mean,
but you know what, Joe,
the
disasters are great to break down. They're great to break down.
Yes.
Well, I definitely agree, because I feel like there's more to talk about when you have a disaster than when things go perfectly, because you're like, oh, this is flawless. Like, okay, like, oh, Corey Shirafisi, he did a masterful cross-examination. Like, that's like, what else can you say about that?
Right.
It's kind of boring in that respect, but yeah, when you've got a terrible job, you're like, this reason, these are all the reasons why this is terrible.
Right.
Continue.
Right. So no, I mean, the whole case was not as exciting as you would think when you hear kid kills his own parents and cuts them up into pieces, burns parts of the body, throws the rest of it all over the state. You would think that this is something that's going to be a fun case, and yet it was just the inventory of evidence that they discovered. This is not fun. This is just like, here's the inventory of what we found, and this is why this is how it all ties together. And you're like, yeah, okay, I understand. You really can't. It's hard to understand how it could be anything else, but it's not exciting when you're watching days and days of just like, here's more evidence we found, and then we found these shell casings here. It's just like, okay, yeah, that's just more. It's not exciting. There's no eyewitness, And then he's like, even when I was doing the Maxwell trial, like the best parts of it was like the boyfriend of Jane describing an argument between Jane and her mother where she's like, "You knew what he was doing to me. You had to know. Don't tell me you didn't know." Like that's like great drama, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah. So we found this shell casing behind the, like lodged up in the molding. You're like, okay, all right. It's not exciting. So now we get to closing arguments, though. In closing arguments, just listening to defense counsel get up there and just admit pretty much they're dead, admit that he destroyed the bodies. But she's like, but you don't know how they died. You don't know how they. Okay, fine. We know he's been lying forever. We know he went to the police claiming he didn't know where they were. We knew he was lying about everything. And and you're admitting that he dismembered the body and basically did everything he could to hide the evidence. Really? I walked in the middle, so maybe I missed the good part of this thing. Maybe. But there was some interesting drama where basically in the rebuttal that the state did, so the prosecutor was talking about how Chandler spent his whole life lying to everyone in his family, everyone his friends and everyone, and that the ultimate betrayal against his parents, when nurtured him, when changed his diaper when he was a kid, and took care of his knee when he fell off his bicycle, nice little heartstring type of moment there. And then he said, he's talking about how now he's asking you to lie, and his lawyer lied to you, and they're asking you to lie for him by returning a not guilty verdict. So that's so the defense said objection, which you don't normally see objections in the middle of closing argument, but that's a place you object.
Yeah.
That's a place. Yeah. When you're saying not guilty means you're lying for Chandler Hellerson, aside from the fact that, arguably defaming.
Joe really needs to work on his car insurance issues and his.
Did the audio just drop? Okay, I was wondering. I was
his car maintenance.
It's the agenda.
It's the agenda.
Oh no!
It's the end,
now he's sideways.
it's the end of Joe.
They've got you, Joe.
We now have an opening on the panel for a new Joe. If you'd like to apply to be the new Joe,
yes.
Please send your resume to Legalbytes.
I'm going to switch from non-kosher to kosher. I got this. All right, we're good. All right, I'm the new Joe.
Kosher hot sauce.
Not kosher.
There you go.
Shalom, brothers.
Oh man. So yeah. Well, I had heard that and I think, is this the case where the defense didn't even put on a case in chief?
No. They didn't put on a case in chief, and their opening, which I analyzed yesterday, was legit 13 minutes, talked about zero facts of the case, and just was a pure reasonable doubt opening. Here's what reasonable doubt is. She told a story about when she was in law school, and that's it. No, I mean, that's
no, it was great. Her entire opening was two parts. The back half of it was, let me tell you about reasonable doubt. Have you heard about reasonable doubt? It's really important. Have you heard about the Constitution? I like the Constitution. It talks about reasonable doubt. Did you know reasonable doubt was the highest standard we have? It's the highest standard we have. But the first half of it was even more hilarious, because the first half of her opening was, I went to law school, and when I went to law school, I learned how to reason and not have so much with the emotions. And you might have emotions, but you should be dead inside like me, so that you too can be up here and not have emotions. Have you considered not having emotions and being dead inside and reasoning and logic? Please be dead inside so that you too can stand here with a straight face and say not guilty. It was the greatest opening statement ever. Be dead inside like me, not guilty. Not guilty is presumed. Please, Constitution. The end.
That's a rough start. That's a really, really rough start. Yeah, that's pretty bad. But we were just talking about the Cardi B case, and in that one there was a big question of why didn't this case settle? Because it seems like factually the case is so bad for the defendant that you would think that she would try to do everything in her power to try to settle before it goes to trial, assuming that she has actually competent, representation, and they're actually giving her good legal advice, and she's actually listening to that good legal advice. Because that's a lot of factors there that could point in another direction. But in this particular case with Halderson, this is a criminal case. You can't. I mean, you can plead guilty, or plead guilty, but you can, try to get some kind of a deal. But it seems like the facts here are pretty bad there. So I don't know what kind of a deal he could possibly get. So maybe it's the evidence is so terrible that, you either plead guilty or we go through this process and you end up in the same place. So at least give yourself a chance. that maybe we can find a jury that's not gonna find this evidence credible. I don't know, but it sounds like a pretty bad case.
Yeah, it's almost, you feel bad for the defense attorneys, but I mean, you also know that's their job. They have to put on a case. You've got to say something. You got to get up there and do something. So,
although I believe it was because the prosecution made a point of it, of saying during their opening statement that the defense apparently during voir dire asked, "What if we got up and did nothing?" Because there was a line from the prosecutor during their opening statement. I'm going to paraphrase as close as I can. Said, "You heard from the defense a question about what happens if we get up there and did nothing." And that's a good question. I'm not going to get up here and do nothing because it'd be a short trial if I did. But the idea of I'm going to literally sit here and do nothing apparently was an idea floated during voir dire, which is hilarious.
Well, they did nothing in terms of witnesses.
They did a lot of, and not much during cross-examination. I was half surprised that Chandler up here doesn't want to get up here. Tell us the truth, Chandler. Get up on the stand and tell us what.
I just want to hear. I just want to hear how you did it. That's all.
Oh man, let me get caught up on super chats here. STFFS said diabetics are immunocompromised, so it makes sense. So having to do with Justice Sotomayor, like we were talking about earlier, and her COVID apprehension, I should say. Christopher Penza says paid ad to the lawyers watching. Want to kill the billable hour? Check out Accelerator Lex. This is Christopher. I know we need to schedule a time.
What is
time
Accelerator
to chat.
Lex? I've never heard of it.
This is so Christopher Penza has, I think, a couple different legal tech companies. And Accelerator Lex is one of them. I can't remember exactly what it is, but he's got a number of legal tech companies that are at least one or two of them are geared towards making law firms more efficient, I believe. So anyhow, we've got a chat about it because I'm super curious to hear more from him on that stuff. But thank you, Christopher. Yeah.
The biggest barrier is changing, frankly, the generational gap and changing the people's mind that are at the top and running these firms. Because frankly, that's always been my fight with law firms. And the reason why I'm not in law firms anymore is because until those people, and I'm going to be very blunt about this because this is the way I am, till they die, because they're not leaving their chairs till they die. That's some of these people.
Well, that's also it's also kind of baked into, it's hard baked into law because law itself is very, very small c conservative. Mm-hmm. And it has been something that has been a long slog. And, we go back 1,000 years, 2,000 years. And so the technological changes has been something law has been completely really unable to deal with. There's all kinds of the normal institutional lag of just you get set in your ways and it's just hard to change institutions. And there's the entire culture of law doesn't allow for that. Yeah. I'm on board though. So if you want to start a law firm and we'll just do things completely differently and maybe it'll go up in flames or maybe it'll be great. But yeah, no one wants to do anything until someone else does it.
Exactly. No, but that's the point. That's the whole point.
Yeah. And I completely agree with you guys. I think law definitely tends to be a very, very slow developing industry because if you think about it, the difference between law and business, a lot of businesses are trying to innovate new things, how to make things more efficient, how to make things, run better. They're usually trying to sort of come up with those new ideas all the time, right? How to improve their logistics and whatnot.
Non-law firm businesses. Yeah. Non-law firm businesses. Yeah.
Law firms, on the other hand, are, lawyers want things to be as predictable as possible. So the minute that you start, because when you can predict things, it means that, you can give, like giving legal advice, for example, anytime there's a drastic change in the law, lawyers kind of freak out, at least internally, because they're like, there's no case law to inform, what I should tell my client about this brand new law. Like, I have no idea how a court is going to interpret this new situation under this new law. I have no idea. But so there's kind of this freak out, even under, when it comes to younger lawyers, I would say also. Yeah. But absolutely, like once you have lawyers that are that are very much set in their ways. I mean, I worked for a lawyer who insisted on pen and paper and who insisted on creating binders for every single case.
And that's true. And not all these methods are necessarily bad, because people like things in a particular way, and that's also okay. I think there's still a couple old school people who still like the books.
Yeah, I had one that literally ordered the the legal dictionaries, like refused to use Westlaw or LexisNexis, wanted the physical copy, cost us thousands of dollars every year, but we got physical copies for the one partner that wanted the physical copies. And
when your partner is nice, it's like, I want copies. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
When can I get them for you?
Yeah. And I do understand that the desire to have pen and paper, because I like to take, I like to take my notes on pen and paper. But I mean, that's also why
probably someone so old school still writing it on typewriter.
Having a legal pad is different than
True. But that's also why I got a remarkable too, because it's actually kind of odd right now that I have this on physical paper, because nowadays I keep most of my notes on this, because it's like having a pen and paper, but then you can upload your notes as a PDF automatically and store them in great ways very efficiently. I love this thing, by the way. This is not a paid advertisement by Remarkable, but if they want to sponsor me,
I once had a guy comment because I use white legal paper, white legal pen instead of yellow pad. They actually made a point commenting about it.
So Christopher Penza also says, I was in big law. You all are absolutely right. I think a big problem is lawyers' inability to price their services. That's what Accelerator does. That's a huge issue too.
Can it help me with can it help me if I'm incompetent and don't know what I'm doing, and also reinventing the entire practice of law on the fly? Can it help me with that? It's like, well, no one's ever done this before. So no one's ever done this before. I'm going to be a trailblazer, so maybe I'll be the lesson of the caution to others. Why we don't do that?
But I think we're getting to a world that's doing that. And I guess one of the good news about Corona, and look at things positive. Sorry, the beer bug is that it's forced people to do Zoom, forced people to do remote, forced people to not go in the office, and forced people to think, hey, how are we going to price our services? Because I'm not doing these physical things, so now I'm doing other things. So maybe we just price it as an all-in price. In fact, as corporate counsel, I have been, whenever I advise my clients, I say, no, go to these firms and tell them the all-in price. And I guarantee you're going to get it a lot faster. You're going to get a lot cheaper, and you're not going to have them yanking you around. So I'll go to them and say, hey, we need an audit of this specific compliance regulation, right? Let's say it's, a specific SEC provision. How much is it going to cost you? $10,000, $20,000? Okay. That's all you have. After that, you are done. You get zero. You get nothing.
Yeah.
So, and you'd be surprised how quick they work on it. You'd be surprised how quick they turn it around.
Yeah. And we're gonna be talking quite a bit about legal fees in a minute when we get to Britney Spears. But first, Christopher Penza also says flat fees are the future. Accelerator Lex allows lawyers to flat fee even when the representation has uncertainty and risk. That is awesome, because that's everyone wins with that, right? Because you need. And by the way, aside from these super chats, I'm not sponsored by Accelerator Lex or by Christopher Penza. I mean,
call me. I will absolutely shill for Accelerator Lex.
But this is a huge issue in the legal industry. I completely agree that, number one, of course, we believe that lawyers should be paid for the work that they do, right? But at the same time, so many of these legal fees that are charged. Let's talk about cases like Britney Spears, for example, where it's outrageous fees that are billed. And these clients end up getting fleeced. And so, what ends up happening is you have public interest firms that are able to cover people at the very bottom, right? People that are indigent. Then you have the ultra rich that are able to afford massive legal fees at the top by these big law firms. And then in the middle, you have everybody else that is just crunched. And so they can't really afford adequate legal representation, because, if it may be good, it may be bad, whatever kind of a lawyer that you end up hiring, because a lot of people don't really know who or what they're hiring, until they're already in it and they've spent a bunch of money on this person. And it can be a really huge stressful mess, on top of the fact that you already have this controversy, or talking litigation specifically, but this is also for transactional work, right? I mean, you already have something that is some kind of an issue that needs to be resolved by a lawyer.
Right.
And it's just like, it's stress on top of stress on top of stress. So, I mean, anything that can find that happy medium so that number one, lawyers can be paid for their work, law firms can run as successful businesses. And number two, on the other side, you've got clients that are not getting fleeced by their attorneys so that the attorneys can keep their businesses running. It's fantastic. I love it. And one final super chat from Christopher Penza to Uncivil's comment about it will help lawyers innovate if they're incompetent. No, but it's going to help their competitors crush them. Hey, there you go.
Well, in the beginning, though, there's always an advantage to somebody. Like if you've got technology on your side, it's like a full force multiplier. I mean, we're all right now, we're talking about, technology. We're using technology to speak to all of you. If I just got out and I went into the middle of like Gangnam here and started yelling at people about the law, that's not going to reach a big audience. And number one, they're not even going to, a lot of them aren't even going to understand what I'm talking about. I'll actually send my streams out to my friends here, my Korean colleagues here in Korea. And they're like, Andrew, I love you. I love listening to you, but I have no idea what you guys are talking about. Like, I can't follow these legal topics. I'm like, I get it. But through technology, we're able to reach a massive audience, and we're able to have people that are engaged like you guys and are crazy and smart enough to be able to follow along with us. So, cheers to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Christopher.
And by the way, someone mentioned LegalZoom and the fact that this is not a super chat, but mentioning like, look how much business has been taken away from lawyers by LegalZoom. I always love to comment that LegalZoom has been both a blessing and a curse, because a lot of times people will rely on LegalZoom documents, F up, and then come back to a real lawyer to fix the problem because they thought LegalZoom was going to cover them on all their bases.
Yeah.
They were probably using it, for example, a California document in New York, and it just didn't work the way it was drafted or written. Yep. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I agree. Let me get through some more super chats. Angry Banling asked Joe, where's Alita's NYPD hat? I've got to ask him about that. We need NYPD hats for all, right? I mean, he's the one that's supposed to be getting all these benefits from it. So why not share the wealth, right? Bipolar Punt says, you enter an office meeting with vaxxed and unvaxxed, no one is symptomatic. Who do you sit near, knowing the vaxxed are more likely to be asymptomatic? Well, first disclaimer, huge disclaimer. None of us are doctors. None of us are able to give any kind of medical advice or medical opinions. But
this is a good segue though to the Djokovic case, if you want to go there now, because the Djokovic case, it makes all sort of those judges now. When we heard our Supreme Court talk, our Supreme Court at multiple stages disclaimed that they are not doctors, they are not medical experts, they're not making medical decisions, right? Despite the fact that at least the liberal justices definitely came out with medical conclusions and put them out there in a way that was forcing the attorneys to agree with them. That aside, I'm talking to you, Sotomayor and Breyer, with your crazy accusations, which were totally unfactual. But the Australian federal court in the Djokovic case had no scruples about saying what the science is and isn't. And spoiler alert, they may not have necessarily been talking about conclusive evidence or firm positions in science.
Yeah. So let's talk about so for anyone that is less familiar with this case for Novak Djokovic, he's a Serbian tennis player who
by the way, are we saying this good? I think Djokovic, right? That's
Djokovic.
Very
good.
I
at least I looked it up. So the several people that I saw in videos, big news companies and whatnot, legacy media or whatever, which, I mean, who knows if anything they say is true, right? But but the way that it was pronounced across the board was Djokovic. Which I'm sure if you're actually Serbian, it's different. It's slightly different. Right. It's like if you're to say my first name as an American versus as a Lithuanian, it's Alita versus Alita. So there's different ways.
Lithuanian, Serbian, all the same thing. All the same. One little difference. It's east of Berlin. We're all good,
But yeah, that's the way that I've seen it pronounced relatively across the board was Djokovic. So he's a tennis player, and he's won the Australian Open 9 times, a record 9 times. And this year he was hoping to go back to defend his title, because I think he also won last year. And amid all this COVID nonsense that's been going on, he has in the past come out and apparently said that he is anti-vaccine. At the very least, for himself. I don't know if he was saying as a full policy or whatever. All that I've seen reported is that he said, quote unquote, he said he was anti-vaccine, back in June 2020 or whenever this was. I don't know that there even were any vaccines at that point yet. I think they were still in development, but so that could have an impact on somebody's opinion of whether a vaccine is good or not. If it's not even fully in existence and hasn't been tested and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, aside from that, so he has not gotten the vaccine, and Australia has a policy for any non-Australians coming into Australia right now. You have to be vaccinated against COVID-19. And because he is not, he had to fit under one of their exemptions. And they don't have very big exemptions in Australia. They're quite strict. He was told by the Tennis Australia chief medical officer and the Victorian government independent expert panel. He was told by them that he was approved as an exemption on the basis that he had just gotten and recovered from the bug. So it was like back in December, I think December 19th or something. So it's within the 90 days that seems to be generally accepted by the CDC and others.
He was there within 2 weeks of recovering. So, I mean, they're all the signs. And by the way, I mean, this is something that, and I'm going to cover this on, I'm going to read the whole judgment on my channel later today. But the Australian government essentially said about this point, they said there is no science that shows that recovering from the beer bug provides any protection whatsoever. And that to me was one of the biggest things where I was like, really? You're really going to go there? So that was one of the biggest things that in terms of the science things that we're talking about here, that's like, I think there's, I don't know, basic immunology 101, not a doctor here, but just saying, I think there's some studies out there. I'm going to pull a couple of them when it comes to my channel, because we've got stuff even on Omicron already on this.
Yeah. So reportedly he was relying on this initial approval by Tennis Australia's chief medical officer and the Victorian government independent expert panel. And he was under the impression that everything was a-okay, that his visa would be approved for his entry into Australia so that he can compete in the Australian Open, where the top prize is, I believe, about $3 million. So this is a substantial point of income for him. And he's not just a throwaway candidate, right? Like, he's kind of favored to win it, actually. So, so he arrived late at night on January 5th in Melbourne. A delegate of the Home Affairs Minister canceled his visa after it was determined that his exemption was not valid under Australia's Biosecurity Act, because his previous infection was not considered a medical contraindication for the vaccine in Australia. So apparently they said, and I'm reading from my notes here, they said that a medical contraindication, quote unquote, is a term. It's granted in specific situations where a drug, a procedure, vaccine, or surgery should not be used because it may be harmful to a person's health. So for example, some people have medical reasons for not getting the vaccine because they have a higher risk of blood clots. That's been a reason, for example, and other reasons. So his visa was then canceled under the Migration Act, which allows for the cancellation of a visa where the holder poses a risk to the health, safety, or good order of the Australian community or to an individual within the Australian community. So that was the reason why it was canceled. He fought it. And then on January 10th, a federal circuit court judge restored his visa and said it was unreasonable for the Australian Border Force to renege on the deal and to give him more time at the airport to contact his legal team. So then on the 14th, this is last Friday, Australian Immigration Minister Alex Hawke, he exercised his personal power to cancel the visa on the basis that Djokovic's presence in Australia might risk, quote, civil unrest, unquote. And he's supposedly a quote unquote talisman of anti-vaccination sentiment. So it wasn't so much of a medical reason; it's more of a political reason from what it sounds like.
The federal court. So the ultimate thing was the federal court. So that was what the minister said, and the federal court went through and affirmed that.
Yes.
So, and their
that was the most
reasoning
recent
that the court gave, like I said, it blows my mind that the court wrote these words, that the literal reason why they're really focused on this, the real problem is not the health and safety. It's the good order. There's a good order clause. And they literally think that he will encourage people to be anti-juice. And that's the real reason why they don't want to let this happen.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm gonna defend Australia on this one. My basis for doing so is I believe in borders. I believe in nations' borders. I believe in a nation's right to protect their borders. I think that every nation has the right to protect their borders and control who does or does not come into their territory under any terms that that they wish. Really, now whether or not the finer internal points of Australian law about the ability of the health minister to contraindicate the federal judges or not, I can't speak to that aspect because I can't speak to the ability of that legal determination in terms of the internal aspect. So I'll just speak to it externally. As far as I'm concerned, and there's case law on point, a nation can refuse someone for what they're going to say. The United States has done it. We have refused people's visas to come into the United States because they are intending to go to particular protests, even though those protests are legal within the United States. We have the sovereign right to exclude them from coming into our territory, even though if they were here, they could engage in the protest. So I'm just going to defend it from a principle of a nation has the right to protect its borders.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're right. And I talk about that all the time is that with immigration law, there's no immigration law. It's whatever their discretion is. I mean, they always give themselves out to refuse somebody, to throw somebody out, like Kurt said, for whatever reason, just because they don't like what they say, right? You have no right unless you're a permanent resident or a citizen. You haven't gotten those rights, whether it's in the United States with the Constitution or whatever other flim-flam documents you have. As we've seen, Australia, New Zealand, a lot of these countries, the documents aren't worth the paper they're written on. Canada, not worth the paper they're written on. But what we can do is we can, number one, vocalize our distaste for this on an international scale.
Sure.
And number two, for me, look, I'm here in Korea. Australian products are everywhere. I'm not buying a single Australian product, pretty much until they stop this craziness. I mean, I'm not going to support monetarily, economically at all anything that's going on that prison island. I've helped more people escape that island than I know that are still on that island. And I know I have viewers in Australia that are like, "Hey, I'm in the bush. I'm out by Perth.
Yeah.
I'm not even bothered by this." I'm like, "That's cool. Nothing against you, bro, but I'm not supporting your government and supplying them with tax revenues by me purchasing Australian beef here. I'll buy Japanese beef. I don't care if it's 2 times
now. Yeah, see, then so this is again where an issue of nuance comes into play, because I was talking about the ability to talk about what comes into your borders. Now if we're going to switch the subject to how Australia is treating its own citizens and their mandates and the camps and things like that, that's a different legal analysis and the importance of nuance in these discussions, right?
Yep.
So we can have issues about how Australia is rounding people up or refusing to let them leave their homes. Or we can even talk about it from a health policy perspective of how these policies don't even make logical sense versus legal sense is a whole nother set of propositions. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and as you're quite right, we have every basis to say, well, this policy doesn't make sense. It's illogical. It's definitionally unreasonable. It's unreasoned. And here's the better reasons that this policy doesn't work as a matter of flow. So there's any number of avenues of attack, but I'm gonna go with the one of the fundamental aspects of what makes a country, baseline definitions. What is a country 101? A country 101 is you have a territory, a permanent population, and the ability to control your territory and the ability to control your borders.
So Kurt,
like if you don't have that, you're not a country. So yeah, the Australia can protect its borders, and I can say they're stupid. That's fine.
So Kurt, how is that going for the United States right now?
In terms of our ability to police our own borders, poorly, and I think we should be doing better at it.
There we go. Thank you. That's good.
Right? That's my thing. It's like, yeah, we should have our ability to police our own borders. Yeah, I've said this before. You're not like catching me in some trap. It's like our inability to police our own borders, our inability to manage our own illegal immigration is a threat to the very definition of what a country is. If we cannot control our own borders, we are failing at one of the fundamental elements of what countries are. So there's that. And in terms of what the policy is, right? You can have a liberal policy. So, like, if we want to change the law, I mean, from a strictly like logical point, if you want to change the law and just say anyone can come in anytime, I mean, if that's your policy, that's your policy.
Yeah, every country gets visa-free travel. Every country gets visa-free travel.
Yeah, you're basically in the Schengen agreement in the in Europe.
Schengen agreement,
Europe.
So
thanks for the correction on the pronunciation. That was good. Yeah, sure.
I will. So and I'll echoing Kurt's point that, like, you know, every country has of course a right to enforce their own borders to determine who comes in and who goes out in various respects when it comes to people that are not their residents, not their citizens. And also obviously we're all American lawyers here. We're not Australian lawyers. So there could always be some nuance that we might be missing because of the fact that we are not licensed to practice there. I mean, I'm not particularly familiar with, you know, the Australian Border Force or with their Migration Act as an example. But, you know, we're kind of relying on a lot of these reports by these various news outlets, and we all know from the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, for example, you know, how those can be skewed in various ways. So, you know, so big asterisks here on the whole conversation, because, you know, we have to rely very heavily on these various outlets, but we're able to sort of look at this from a legal perspective of, you know, the training that we have, the reasoning that we typically apply to these kinds of cases as if they were in the United States. And I think one thing that is very glaringly apparent here is I mean, the ultimate reasoning for why Djokovic was deported is something that would not fly in the United States, because we have very, very strong First Amendment rights.
Yes.
So, I mean, the idea that someone's presence in the country, in the United States, is going to incite.
I do disagree.
No. But Kurt, just because they can do it doesn't mean there wouldn't be a backlash from them doing it. I think there would be a pushback.
Yeah, but I thought Alita's was a legal point, and I was going to push back on the legal point.
Yeah, less of a political point, more of a legal point.
Yeah, I believe the United States.
I think that reasoning wouldn't happen in the United States. But
I believe it not only can. I don't only believe it can. I believe it has happened where the United States has, in fact, excluded people from the United States on the basis of them wanting to engage in what would be lawful free speech if they were here, but we're not going to let them in the country in the first place. So yeah, I think that would be a valid basis for the United States to exclude. What countries can do at borders pushes boundaries in other areas. I've commented about this before. You need an act of Congress, but if you had an act of Congress that actually said, we're going to exclude, say, pick your religion of choice in this sentence. We're going to exclude anyone who is a adherent to this religion from coming into our country. Because of the fundamental nature of what borders are, you'd actually have to think about it. Even though Congress just passed a law explicitly on religious grounds, because it's the border, you'd actually have to think about it, about whether or not that law is valid. Because that's the rights don't attach. Borders.
Because the rights don't. It's this weird limbo where you're at the airport before you've passed customs. Yeah. You're in a gray area where you're not technically in the United States.
You're not really in the United States. We can
That's a very valid point. Any kind of border checkpoint, whether it's at an airport or at an actual like physical border, say, you know, south of San Diego, for example, you don't really have too many due process rights, as an example. Even for citizens, you have very limited due process rights.
Let's talk about the Fourth Amendment at the border for a second. You know, Jesus Lord, what Fourth Amendment? It's not much of one. The power at the border, the power at borders is immense, because it goes back to this fundamental idea of the fundamental powers of the sovereign, and their ability to control their borders is kind of at the zenith of the power. So yeah, the United States and Australia, for that matter, can get away with shit at their border that they can't do internally. Yeah, their power at the border is immense.
Yeah, yeah. So, but what kind of cases do you know of where the United States?
I vaguely remember one dealing with some Canadians. I'd have to get back to you specifically, but I vaguely remember someone wanting to come in from Canada for.
I know.
For
I also know. I don't know if it was the United States, but I know other countries have denied. Like, for example, Salman Rushdie. I know he's like famous. he was denied like all the time back in the day for what he said being anti-Islamic, et cetera, et cetera. So there were certain people that would deny him coming to certain countries. So it just demonstrates that each country is going to exercise these rights, regardless of what bilateral agreements they have, regardless of what free speech protections they have.
So you can vaguely remember the UK doing it with some of our citizens, where they kick them out and be like, "Don't ever come back."
No, I mean my buddy was at the airport and he made an off-color joke. He's Iranian descent, and he was Iranian from the UK, and he was coming to the US, and he made a joke. They put him through the extra checking, the extra patting him down, and he made a joke. He's like, "Oh mate, it's not like I'm giving him an Australian accent, but whatever, governor." He's like, it's not like I'm a terrorist or anything. And just saying that word,
bad time.
He got on a red flag list for 5 years. He couldn't come back to the United States just because he said the word. It was a joke. It was clearly a joke. It's
like Meet the Parents. You can't say bomb on an airplane. You said bomb on an airplane.
Yes.
I said it's not like I have a bomb in my bag. What?
Doesn't matter.
And I'm even going to the normative principle, not only the legal principle, I'm going of the normative principle of it should be that way. Countries should have the power to control their borders.
Yeah.
The United States should have the power to control its borders. We should have the power to exclude.
How's that going for us?
Could be going better.
So, but
that's my base.
Have they run out of space blankets?
Borders are badass.
But hang on now. So the examples that you cited, I mean, where the stated reason for that person trying to come into the United States was for the purposes of fluffing up speech, right? To kind of like ruffle some feathers, right? But in this particular case, if Djokovic were trying to come in for the U.S. Open, and this were the United States, evaluating the situation, I
can think of one situation now. It just came back to my mind. The TV show Top Gear. This is a great show because they build it into their show. Okay, so they came to the United States to film a segment about buying cheap cars, going from Florida to Mississippi, I think, and they painted slogans on the side about all kinds of things and ruffled up some feathers. Now, apparently, when they came to the United States, they applied to make a factual documentary. Not to make an entertainment show, which apparently is subject to a different kind of visa. So when they came back to the United States to film a different segment, they made a whole thing about it on their show as a joke. Like they made a whole thing about, we actually got in trouble with the U.S. State Department about this. And we wanted to come back to the United States to make another video where we were going to drive from San Francisco in cars to the Utah Salt Flats. And we got in trouble because our license was invalid. We were only licensed for a documentary. So in the end, they said, we promise this is true. In the end, we had to promise not to be funny because we were only licensed for a documentary. And then in the episode, they just throw in these random documentary facts for no particular reason other than it's like because of the license. So there's one instance where the United States, we tried to ban Top Gear because they had the wrong kind of filming license. There you go.
I think that's funny.
It is pretty funny.
That is. Yeah. But getting back to Djokovic, if this were the U.S. Open, I mean, his stated reason for going is not to create a statement on vaccine mandates or on the vaccine. It's to come and play in a tournament, right? Like that's what he's been asserting this whole time. He's like, I don't really have a beef with what's going on there. I just have decided this for myself. At least this is what he was most recently saying. When he was, I guess on his way out, while the doors shutting behind him, he's like, that's not why I was here. But there would have to be some sort of reasonable relation, right? Between the two, I would think, in the United States. It just seems like this wouldn't happen for this particular case in the United States.
Yeah, I don't think this would happen. This would happen for this reason, especially because in the United States, this would be a tinderbox. I mean, this would think about our politics right now. I mean, it would absolutely explode if someone just said, "Oh yeah, because I'm unjuiced and you're not going to let me in the border because Biden said, Big Bad Biden said no." I mean, no. And number one, if Biden tried to set a requirement like that, the backlash would be swift and immediate, I think. I mean,
they were when Trump tried to put in mandates.
Remember the Muslim ban? Do you guys remember the Muslim ban?
I remember a ban in particular countries. I remember that.
Yes, I remember that too. Yeah, exactly. The Muslim ban, which didn't exist. So,
Well, yeah, half of the country was calling it a Muslim ban, half of the country was calling it a ban on risky countries.
Yes.
And
well, I remember
depending
the
on your
countries being
political
named in the
persuasion.
regulation.
What's
Yeah.
that?
Which chat? I remember the countries being named in the regulation.
You do?
Half of which were not dominantly Muslim.
Majority Muslim?
Yeah. Half of which, we're not.
I think,
So,
Actually, now that you mention it, I think that was the case.
I know we've all been misled by the media. I know it's a shocker. What a surprise!
Absolutely,
What?
Completely shocking. So anyway, but
we should get Kamala Harris on the show because she is, after all, the person who's been appointed by the administration to be the border czar, and she's been in office exactly a year and a year and an hour. And so we should have Kamala Harris on and ask her about how the border is going, since that's her domain.
Now that she's been to the border,
let's reach out to the office of the vice president. Let's reach out to the office of the vice president and see if their spokesman wants to talk to us. That'd be good.
Madam Vice President, if you would like to be on the show, I would love to have you.
Yeah. How's the border issues going, since that's your domain? What changes have you made in the last year?
She's gonna send Jen Psaki. It's like, we'll circle back. We'll circle
Jen
back.
Psaki's the spokesman for the Biden. I don't know who her spokesman is.
That's true.
But in I guess to sort of wrap up the timeline for Djokovic. So now that he's had this official determination by the court, they just he's gone. He's out of the country. He's not coming back. Maybe for another 3 years, because he could be potentially banned for 3 years, which is crazy, because that means that means another 3 U.S. Opens or at least 2 that he would not be able to U.S. Opens, Australian Opens, that he would not be able to participate in. So number one on that is that the court just came out with their full sort of opinion on their reasoning. That was an explanation of their reasoning for why they supported Alex Hawke's, the Australian immigration minister's decision on deporting him. So I know Legal Mindset, you said that you're going to be going through that whole document. It's like 27 pages, right?
It's it's lengthy, but we're going to go through it because I think going through the reasoning is important, and also understanding that this is the reason for Australians. I think Australians out there, I've had Australians get on, even on my channel, and say, "Oh no, you're misrepresenting this." I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not misrepresenting this. This is the government that you've elected. I'm just telling you what the government that you've elected does. If you would like to elect a different government,
you guys do realize you have a preferential voting system, and you could not vote for these fucktards, unlike us. Yes. You could be showing us the way. Why aren't you guys using your preferential voting system and voting for, minority parties? We don't have a preferential voting system, and it blows. This is one of the things that I want to, as king of the United States, I'd like to switch to a preferential.
And let me say something nice is that I went to Australia in 2019. I loved going there from a natural standpoint. There were a lot of cool things to do there. It was really fun. I had a lot of fun in Australia. I would love to go back. However, as long as a government like that is there, even if I'm able to go there, I will not do it. I will not give them my tax revenue. I will not give them my money. I will not give them my tourism, because I would never support something like that.
You want to cancel Australia?
I'm canceling Australia. I'm totally canceling Australia.
How about New Zealand? Is New Zealand canceled?
The Kiwis are just as bad. I interviewed a Kiwi lawyer on my locals channel. We had to keep it there because we were getting real unscripted, and they're even worse.
I know.
They've
had some pretty harsh lockdowns.
And the insanity was they truly believed they could get to 0. And that's the
New Zealand has some plausible. I mean, it's more plausible than a lot of places. You got to give some credit.
Population size, they're separated from the rest of the world.
It's relatively small.
These things can jump over. These things can jump over into animals, including, what do they have a lot of? Oh, sheep. Oh yeah, they could jump over into sheep and then jump back into humans. Oh, really interesting how that can work.
So Snelfer says the J is pronounced as a Y. So is it Djokovic instead of Djokovic? Djokovic, maybe?
Because the D is silent. The D is silent. I think.
The D is silent. So Djokovic.
So it's Djokovic, right?
Okay. All right. Interesting. Thank you for letting me know. STFU FFS says it is time for us to do, quoting Kamala Harris, it is time for us to do what we have been doing. And that time is every day. Every day it's time for us to agree that there are things. Did you guys
is see that true? No, is that real?
I agree with,
I don't know if that is it. If that is
all that stuff. Yeah, that's, I agree.
I don't know if it's verbatim, but it's almost verbatim. What,
no, look, I believe it, because I remember when I was on the stream with everybody, I think it was on Hunley's channel, and I said, no, Biden just wished us all death for winter. And no one's like, no, you're kidding me. You're lying. I'm like, no, he did. He said you're all going to die. You know, it's like,
and also it's a good thing that you die.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So it's like, this is crazy. This is you couldn't make this up. I mean, these are elected officials. I mean, they're saying things like this.
It reminds me of oh gosh, what is his name?
Remember Bush? Do you remember George Bush? W?
Which one?
W. Do you remember when people used to think that W was like he had quotable moments?
Mm.
Yeah.
He did. I mean, he did have some quotable moments. Trump had quotable moments too. And so has Biden. I mean, it's I don't know what it is about our elected officials. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Trump does he usually does own it. But I'll let you guys in on a little fun fact. Mr. Bites and I, we like when we're just making fun of each other. We like to quote Donald Trump from one of the pressers from the early COVID days when he I can't remember exactly what the question was that one of the journalists asked him something, and he was just like, "Hey, don't be a cutie pie." And then he just went on and railed against him. So
it's MAGA bites over here.
Woo. No, but yeah, no, we like to make fun of that whole thing. And we'll be like, hey, don't be a cutie pie. Anyway,
that's a better Trump quote than some of the other ones.
Also true.
But George W. Bush was also really good at making fun of himself. There was one time where he did a whole speech where he was reviewing a book of his own witticisms that someone had published, and so he's like, well, I guess I'm an author, so I might as well read my own stuff. And he had some good punchlines in there.
Yeah.
So
no, and he actually had a sense of humor. That's back when you could have a sense of humor, and politicians could have a sense of humor. I'll even say this: even Bill Clinton had a sense of humor. You know, that. I mean, that is completely lost now. Like the left cannot laugh about anything. Nothing is funny anymore. It's like the only good memes are coming out, on one side, not the other. It's hilarious.
Lauren R has a super chat here. She says Tasha K, after admitting to lying for money, said that she she finds STIs funny, especially AIDS when contracted recklessly. Oh, that's right. That was another thing that she said.
I mean, it's not great for the PR, but you can find it funny, I guess.
Personally, that's
shot
your
in
choice.
Florida. You going to shot in Florida for the AIDS? Okay, well,
but to be saying that in front of a jury when you are on trial for defamation is stupid. Why would you say that? Why would you say that? So number one is yeah, I have a lot of questions. Number one is, what the heck did her lawyers advise her on when she was going to be testifying? Did they say,
to be fair, they can't coach her, right, Aaliyah?
They can't coach her.
Yeah.
They can't coach her, but they can explain. They can, before getting into their session where they're going to be talking about what to expect at trial, they can say, hey, just so you know, this is the kind of stuff that the jury's going to be looking for. This is the kind of stuff that the juries tend to dislike. This is the kind of stuff that juries tend to like. So, it is helpful, to be, of course, to have a jury like you as a person. That is always helpful. It's not always necessary, and it's not always possible. But, you can explain things ahead of time. That's not coaching, just sort of, giving a lay of the land. But at the same time, you can also give your client legal advice on all of this stuff. So number one, what kinds of advice and prep sessions did her lawyers give her? Number two, has she been listening to her lawyers? Because those are two separate questions. You could have somebody, like we've talked a lot on this channel about Alec Baldwin, and he would be the last client in the world that I would ever want to have.
For so many reasons.
I don't think he would listen to anyone other than Alec Baldwin. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know him personally, but I mean, this is just my impression from what I have seen and what I have heard. So he seems like personally he would be a nightmare client, and the money that you would make from him would not be worth it, in my opinion, because you would just lose your life and lose your soul. But there are and your credibility. Well, maybe not. Depending on
if you lose. Which you will.
This is the problem with Trump. I mean, Baldwin, I might be able to manage, but Trump is impossible because
also true.
You can't.
He would be a nightmare client too.
I got to run though because it's coming up to the top of the hour. But I just want to say it's been a lot of fun.
I've enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us. Sorry you can't talk about Britney with us.
Yeah, maybe I'll, if you guys are still on, maybe later I'll try to pop back, but I got to run for now.
Okay.
All right.
See ya.
Cool. Bye. Like W high on speed. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I honestly, guys.
Let me just read it for the podcast. SDFU FFS says, "Ver fucking beta, Andrew." Like W high on speed, referring to the Kamala Harris quote earlier.
I love when you say fucking. That was good, Alita. It's
fuggin'.
Like it's good because it's like you almost come close to cursing. It's really cute.
I've cursed on here before,
but you like save it up. Like literally, I'm told by people here in Korea, they're like, Andrew, you curse a lot, and I'm like, I'm a lawyer, so like, it's like I'm a lawyer. Like
I'm an American lawyer. On top of that,
yes, exactly. Like on top of that, So I'm very conscious of it, but yeah, no, it's no whole bars for you guys. You guys get the unfiltered mindset here. Unfortunately, you're exposed to that, which is why we get
spicy mindset.
Which is why we are demonetized mindset 90% of the time. But especially if we're talking about the topics we're talking about, because lately it's been nothing but really spicy topics. And like I said, they've moved from necessarily courtroom Djokovic, I would say, or Djokovic, courtroom. There's a courtroom involved there, but more and more pop culture. And what's more pop culture than the queen of pop, Britney Spears?
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Britney Spears.
And give me some background, because I don't know anything. So this is one you are filling me in on. I know she got out of her conservatorship. Yay. But there's an accounting now, I guess.
Yes. So here's an article from yesterday's hearing. So basically, what has been going on is back in November, the court officially determined that the conservatorship was ended. So she was able to make her own decisions, hire her own counsel, enter into her own contracts, all that kind of stuff. She's able to basically run her own life as any normal adult would. And so the last questions were questions of finance of the conservatorship estate. Now, there was an accounting that was already disputed before Britney had her new counsel, Matthew Rosengart. Now, before him, she was able to hire him this year. Before him, she had a court-appointed lawyer who was kind of just sort of like maintaining this floating case and just kind of like letting it sit and just sort of slowly meandering down the Mississippi River, we can say, but not really pushing for anything, not really advocating much for her. But one thing that he did do was to object to the conservators. In this case, it's Jamie Spears, Britney's dad. His request for legal fees and for payment to himself for his role as a conservator, because under any kind of a trust administration or any kind of a conservatorship where you have someone that is acting as a trustee or as a conservator, any kind of a fiduciary, they are entitled, typically speaking, they are entitled to fees, reasonable fees.
Yes.
In this case, it looks like over the last, what are the allegations here? Let me see if I can find.
Yeah, because it's going to be a matter. Because look, the number we know right now, the number is going to be a big number. Because if it's for a long period of time, well, then maybe we're talking something justifiable if it's a long period of time. Because lawyers are expensive, guys. I hate to break it to you, but we don't work for free.
So this is an annual accounting. So this is the 12th accounting for a 13-year conservatorship. So he's already been paid 11 times, and apparently,
1 year fees.
Yeah. So before this point, he had been paid over $3 million. No, more than that, $6 million. I think before that,
over 12 years. So
over 11 years.
Yeah. So about 500,000 a year, whatever. Like. That's not insane. I know it sounds crazy, but for a lawyer,
he's not a lawyer. So this is for the conservator. This is for her dad. This is where I start to really question whether or not I personally really question his calculation of these fees, because number one, I mean, I haven't dug too deeply into the calculations. Actually, I haven't dug into the calculations for, you know, each of these accountings for how he reached certain numbers. But there was one year where he asked for over $1 million in fees. And then after that, for a couple of years, he asked for 200,000. And then it was like, you know, roughly between $300,000 and $500,000 a year that he himself was asking for on top of legal fees, which, yes, now that I think about it. So he had collected $6 million for himself. The legal fees outside of his own fees were around $30 million for the last 11, 12 years. So a lot of money. And apparently it was reported that dozens of law firms were hired over this period of time, which sounds kind of insane, right? Like,
yeah, dozens. No, but I mean, someone says in the dad's attorney was $1,200 an hour. I know attorneys that would work for $1,000 an hour. I know attorneys that work for $2,000 an hour. So so it's just telling me an hourly billable rate like that is not going to shock the conscience or anything like that. That's something that in LA or New York, like, that's not unheard of.
I will say I worked for a boutique firm that did just this kind of work, conservatorships, trusts, and whatnot, and it was just for people that were it was kind of like the higher
senior partner level. Yes, senior partner. Yeah.
So, but I will say that even the legal fees in our firm, they were like half that for partners, if I'm not mistaken.
My firm too. The firms I've worked at, but I worked at firms that were medium-sized firms that we literally targeted poaching people from big law clients because we had big law lawyers, ex-big law people. We would market ourselves as the same quality, half the price. But and we would poach from big markets like New York and LA that had rates like that. So we could bill $700 an hour, and that's literally half of what the same attorney in New York is charging. So I mean, that's why when I say this, I'm like kind of confident. And also one of our attorneys at our firm, he actually specialized in fee litigation. So he would go in when there's a thing, or hey, are these fees reasonable and unreasonable, and testify in this. So there is a lot of argument, and it can go both ways about whether these are reasonable and unreasonable. And another thing is for fiduciary fees. I don't know about you, Alita, or in California if you've dealt with it, but sometimes they can be a percentage. And if you have an estate as big as Miss Spears, well, maybe that is 1% or a fraction of 1% of her estate is, you know, $1 million or $500,000 a year. I don't know.
I mean, in California, when it comes to probate, they have if you have a case that goes to probate and there's no trust or anything like that, you can have your fees come out they have like a tier system where, you know, up to a certain amount of the value of the estate, you can have a certain percentage. And then every amount that's above that gets, you know, in this tier gets a smaller percentage. And then it goes smaller and smaller percentages, but for higher amounts, so that you don't end up ideally fleecing the value of this estate just by administering it. But that's not required. And certainly for conservatorships, generally speaking, the requirement is you have to be you're entitled to reasonable fees. So, which of course is a very loose term. It's up for interpretation. And you know, we were talking about fees earlier, and how legal fees are a very ripe way to harm a client that you are purportedly helping. But a lot of the issues having to do, or one of the issues that I personally have with legal fees, is that, you know, a lot of firms don't like to share how much they are charging their clients because, you know, they consider that to be proprietary or whatnot. But it really doesn't help for other firms to determine what the reasonable market is, or it doesn't help for clients to determine that either.
And we would go to lengths at all the firms I'm at. And I'm not disclosing, you know, the names of the firms. What I'm saying is everyone, we'd go to lengths to discover what they were doing. I mean, I'm not going to say, because some of the things were kind of shady, but they will go through practices to try to figure out what they'll do. And anytime they have to submit, for example, a public RFP, you know, request for proposal, and you have to submit your rates, guarantee you we're pulling that immediately, seeing exactly what those are, so that we remain competitive. And we were always going to try to slightly underbid the highest quality firms. So we're still, you know, we're still up there, but we're not the highest bidder.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and in this particular case, reportedly, the amounts that that Jamie Spears was being paid over the years was more than he was allowing to be given to Britney, even though it's her money. And so anyway, so they had this hearing yesterday, which was on a petition by Jamie Spears and his legal team to be paid out of the estate for the 12th accounting, and they wanted to have funds set aside for the future, for their representation and tying up all of the matters of the conservatorship and whatnot. They wanted to have this like hanging Chad with access to the money, right? Of course. And apparently the court hearing went for like 3 hours yesterday, and it was spicy, super spicy. You had attorneys that were accusing each other of all kinds of things, calling each other liars. Crazy. It looks
good
like
stuff.
Yes, very good.
Is it recorded?
It was not recorded, but these hearings lately in this case have had transcripts that have come out afterwards. So I would love to do a dramatic reading of that transcript.
Oh, that's great. I would totally do that with you. If you like a male voice, I will be that.
Let's do it.
I would totally do that. Because I was actually thinking about that for one of mine, because I was reading off the Djokovic transcript with the border agent. And I was like, I wish I had somebody to be like, you're the border agent, I'm Djokovic. Like, we're doing this back and forth. But that would be fun. Let's definitely do that. That'd be hilarious.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, you're a liar.
So in order to request these fees, Jamie's attorneys had to basically say, hey, look, he did all this work. He didn't do anything wrong in the process, and therefore he's entitled to his fees. Well, Matthew Rosengart, Britney's attorney, filed a response or an objection to it in the days leading up to the hearing, where basically he said, actually, you did a lot of things wrong, and here's a bunch of them. Those included, what do I have here? Those included financial mismanagement, self-dealing, and potentially illegal surveillance of Britney into her private life, including therapy sessions and attorney-client conversations. So potentially some very major issues here. So when it came to self-dealing, apparently he was using some of the funds that he was getting from the conservatorship to try to pitch an idea for a cooking show for him to star on, using his connections. And then there was something else that he was supposedly doing. To try to benefit one of his businesses, like a catering business, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, to the extent that, and by the way, to the extent that any of that is exposed, absolutely, that should be actionable. That should be, once again, there has to be proof to back this up. These need to be, verified. And I'm just somebody who has just wading into this. So once again, a bare accusation doesn't mean much, especially in Hollywood with, people in Hollywood. I really am in a wait and see, and let me show me the proof. In an era of Baldwins, I want to see the smoking gun, literally.
Yeah.
So show me. That's Britney's accusation, or that's a lawyer's accusation. Let's get some discovery, and let's see what actually happened here.
Well, as far as I know that there was at least one declaration that was attached to Britney's filing. I don't know if the declaration had to do with the self-dealing, but as far as that allegation is concerned, that one, it involves another person that he ostensibly approached, right? So that should be pretty easily verifiable. And so, and to make clear, anyone that is in this kind of an agency role, like we were talking about, a conservator, a trustee, anyone that is representing someone else's rights, yes, you are entitled to fees, but you also have certain responsibilities. And one of those is to not engage in any kind of conflicts of interest. If you have a conflict of interest that shows up, you're either supposed to resolve that so that you no longer have that conflict, or to step away from the entire relationship if it's not possible to step away from that conflict. So one of two ways, you've got to get yourself out of that situation. And it looks like he was allegedly inviting those situations so that he could personally benefit from his position of authority and control over the Britney estate. Now, as far as the surveillance situation, there was a declaration that was attached to this filing by a former FBI agent, or
I think that's what Cameron said in the chat here. Said that there's an FBI agent that did an audit So
yes,
that's interesting. So that's interesting. And once again, that's their side. They hired somebody to do a job, and they're entitled to a defense against that or to be able to rebut that. But I mean, yeah, that's pretty damning evidence.
Yeah. And they're saying that they were recording Britney in the bedroom. They were recording Britney in her therapy sessions. They were recording Britney in her conversations with her attorneys. Okay, now number one, all of those are very, very, very sensitive, private areas.
Privileged, perhaps. You might
Yes.
say.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, the therapist conversations and the attorney-client conversations.
One, yeah.
Absolutely. Those two are pretty hardcore privileged.
Bedroom is just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's engaged currently, but she's not married. And during the course of this whole conservatorship, she hasn't been married. So it's there's never been a situation where, we would be talking about a marital privilege, for example. But California is also a two-party consent state when it comes to recordings. I have actually used this in litigation before,
Really?
in an employment case where my client was an employee who was fired for retaliation, actually for reporting a sexual harassment situation by a supervisor. And she was retaliated against by things that were, by moving her around the company and taking her kind of away from her work. And then ultimately, they fired her for making a complaint about the complaint. And the conversation where that person was fired, the employer recorded her without her knowledge. She had no idea that this recording even existed until I managed to get it in discovery. I had no idea. None of us knew that this thing existed. And it was a very victorious moment to realize, oh my God, not only do they have information that we really would like to see and that is very interesting, but holy hell, now we have a whole new cause of action against you guys. It was a pretty
That's interesting, because in some situations you would say, okay, well, especially if it's like a criminal situation, like for example, if there's like a crime going on, and especially with the amount, for example, in most of the cases we've seen lately, video evidence has been very big in deciding whether or not that case comes out. But let's say one of the states where you're recording, it's a two-party consent state. So you technically open yourself up to an action, right? If you're sitting there recording people without their consent. However, if it could be dispositive, especially in a criminal case, I mean, you're balancing this weight of, okay, I may not be able to legally do this, with this may be very dispositive in the case. And if I take this video, this may show the crime, this may exonerate me, for example.
I haven't seen how that plays out in a criminal case in California, but I will say that one of the requirements, and this may add some nuance too, is that one of the requirements of it is that it has to be in a situation where the person who did not give consent would have reasonably expected that conversation to be private. So if you're just walking down the street and somebody records a video of you walking down the street on the sidewalk, you don't have any reasonable expectation of privacy in that situation, right? So that would not be a situation necessarily where someone is dealing with an unlawful recording. But let's all of these situations listed in this case are different.
But I say, like, the context you had, which is a great context actually, and like the example you had is a perfect one. For example, let's reverse the roles. Let's say it's a case where there's an employee that has a known history of false accusations of misconduct, right? And so you're uncomfortable. So, the Advites Co, when they're coming into your room alone with you, you just hit the record button on a hidden recorder, and, they ultimately make a false accusation about you as to what happened in that room when you were alone. But you've got the recording. Now, it's in California, so two-party consent, you didn't get their consent. But are you going to try to bring that out at trial to defend yourself? I mean, I think you would, but it may not come in. But you're just saying you wouldn't even bring it up. You wouldn't even try.
Nope, I wouldn't because it's they can come right back and sue you for an unlawful recording. I would
to
not
get you out of the crime.
I would have so even within a company, let's say you have a secret recording device, but you have it in your office where you have meetings where you close the door that is a very clear signal that someone can expect to have privacy during that conversation. But if you have that recording device that's, let's say, out on the general floor where there's a bunch of cubicles, you know, and a lot of noise and whatnot that everybody kind of has to deal with, and you have it in kind of a general area in the room, the analysis would be very different. And I don't know in that kind of a case that there would be a reasonable expectation of privacy to the extent that there would be an unlawful recording. But in the context of a supervisor closing their door to have a private quote unquote meeting with someone, that would be a situation. And that was in this case that I told you about. Is one of those situations where that is an unlawful recording.
Yeah, so. No, it's very interesting. It's very interesting because, you know, when you think about it and you're thinking, okay, what are the possible defenses against this? Because, you know, there's innocent parties and there's guilty parties, right? And they're not always on the same side of the fence. Sometimes it goes both ways in some circumstances.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But
Britney's case, we're leaning towards the facts are not looking good for Jamie and for the conservatorship in general. It's not looking great, and it hasn't been looking great. And the PR has been way better on the Britney side than on the Jamie side. I mean, the fact that there's the Britney law army is out strong on Twitter. I mean, it's either Britney has really good PR, or the facts are so on Britney's side, and the law and the facts are so on Britney's side that
both.
They're clearly right, or both.
Or both. Yeah. So basically this hearing yesterday had three main results. So number one, there was this spat between the two lawyers during the hearing where they were sort of accusing each other of lying to the court. Jamie's lawyer accused Britney's lawyer also of planting these stories in the media about the unlawful recording and whatnot, basically saying you're fabricating all this, which is odd because this counsel that showed up to this hearing is new counsel for Jamie, and previous counsel didn't say that these things didn't happen. They didn't say that these were lies. They said everything that he did was legal and privileged and whatnot. So now his new counsel is saying something completely different. And it's just interesting. It's just interesting how the tone has shifted. And something tells me that this guy just was hired because Jamie's like, I need a pit bull. I need somebody to be absolutely ruthless and, you know, go for the jugular as much as possible. You know, that's probably why he hired this new counsel. And there are those lawyers that is their style. I personally have always detested that because, you know, law should be about the facts and the law, right? It should be about the analysis.
Should be. I agree with you.
Should be. And it shouldn't be about, you know, which side can bully the other side by being an asshole.
Well, but that's the people who are like the biggers of the world that take the zealous advocacy requirement, because we all are required. We are required to do the best possible job for our client. That is the requirement of zealous advocacy. So we have to be not just like, oh, ho hum, all right. We need to be fervently representing our client to the best of our abilities. I truly believe in that. However, I believe there's a line where you cross into unethicalness when you start misrepresenting the laws and the facts. And that's something as a lawyer I would never do, right? Yeah. However, and you know, I mean, there's so many people that seem comfortable with it and take it, like you said, to the extreme to be not only an asshole, but an unethical asshole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Cameron F here says that apparently the employee who worked for the security firm has a copy of hours of the recordings. The people that made the New York Times documentary claim that they have heard a bunch of it. And that's right, because that was the first time that we even heard about these secret recordings was because of the New York Times. They came out and they have said since this hearing that they actually they spent a lot of time vetting these sources for these allegations.
Sorry, New York Times vetting makes me laugh.
Well, okay, sure. Right. Always an asterisk, right? with any of these legacy media people. But let's I don't know. If there's actual recordings of it that people have and people have looked at and they've listened to and whatnot, then I think that really lends a lot of credibility to those claims. And it makes it even more bizarre that Jamie's attorney would try to frame those allegations as lies as strongly as he has. But you know, ultimately the judge decided not to not to reserve any funds for Jamie's use in the future, which is a huge win because this means that Britney is able to control her finances. If the power has shifted financially back to Britney, which is a big deal in this case. For a long time now, for over a month, for over a month now, she's technically been able to legally make her own decisions, but now financially she is actually in control of her own purse strings, which is huge because if Jamie's going to try to get any money from her to pay for anything, he has to work even harder to get that from her. So that's a really big deal. And another weird thing that came up in in the hearing, was Jamie's lawyer apparently asked the judge to unseal all of Britney's medical records. And hey, Good Logic is back.
Yo.
Oh
How's
my
it going?
God.
We're talking about Britney Spears. So Jamie's lawyer also asked the court to unseal all of Britney's medical documents to make them completely public, saying that the public has a right to know. Number one, no, the public does not have a right to know anyone's medical documents as far as anything is concerned for any purpose, really. Like name the reason. What's the public interest in her medical documents?
He's not the father. That's the reason you get to know.
Now that would be wild if we found that out in this case. But if after everything it turns out he's not even her father, but it's such an outrageous claim because that they're just doing it to try to intimidate Britney, to try to say like, hey, you had all of these issues before, and maybe you even have issues now, and we want to make that public because they're saying she's got the publicity, she's got all of these, she's got her Britney's law army that's fighting for her in the public domain, and we have no way of combating that. So they were like, for those reasons, we should have these medical records be made public to everyone, and the court, I believe, decided no, because that's just an insane claim. That's insane, right? Like anyway, I thought that was particularly outrageous. But one. Let me see here if I have.
And to the person asking if I sleep, the answer is no.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, and then one last thing about this was one other apparently stunning moment. So according to Elizabeth Wagmeister, so she works for Variety. She was there in the courtroom and live tweeting. She said that she says in a tweet here, a stunning moment in the courtroom today. Jamie's lawyer said, let's remember why this conservatorship was put in place. Ms. Spears was irresponsible with her finances. And then to which Judge Penny responded, please, let's not go there. Let's not go down that road. Can you imagine after all of this? I was one person that was saying, before the conservatorship was ended, when there was this whole controversy for months and months, I was saying, we don't really know all the information. We don't know her medical history. We don't know, there's so much information that we publicly don't know. So I was uncomfortable with saying, yes, of course, the conservatorship should be ended when there's just this massive vacuum of information. But this suggests that the prime reason, or maybe only reason, why she was under this conservatorship was because she was financially irresponsible. To which I respond, that is completely the wrong reason to put someone under a conservatorship. If that is the only reason, the only reason to put someone under a conservatorship is because they don't have capacity. Either it's because they are a minor or because they are an adult and there's something that is interfering with their ability to actually make decisions.
She should be allowed to bankrupt herself. If she wants to go out there and spend all of her money, she has absolutely the right. By the way, like most wealthy people do, like most people in Hollywood, if she wants to go out there and do all the drugs, and she wants to go get and waste all of her money, that is an American thing. We support people wasting their money on drugs, sex, and rock and roll. We approve of that in America. It's very American.
Yes. And by the financial irresponsibility yardstick, I need a conservator also. So.
I know someone.
Hold on. How's the Hebrew need a conservator? Come on now, you guys are supposed to be controlling the finances and the media. What's going on? Good Logic.
Yeah, no, I missed that class. But... Yeah, I mean, everyone who doesn't need a financial conservative. You're going to say it doesn't need a conservative. You say it's financial irresponsibility. We have literally 80% of Americans, or or 60% are drowning in debt. And you're going to tell me that anyone who's financially responsible needs a conservative? That's ridiculous.
I mean, I think it's 75% of people don't have access to like $1,000 in their bank account if they need it for an emergency or something like that. It's like a staggering amount of people. It's insane.
Yeah. And so I just that little revelation, and maybe, this was apparently a very heated hearing, so maybe this is just sort of cherry picked out of a long discussion that they were having about the merits of the underlying conservatorship, when it happened. But so there's always a possibility that this was sort of taken out of context somehow, right? Because I'm getting this from a live tweet. I'm not getting this from the actual transcript itself. But I mean, if this accurately portrays the statement that Jamie's lawyer actually made in this case about the underlying reason, the sole reason for having this conservatorship, like that to me was just like, okay, come on. Like, why was I so freaking careful this whole time in evaluating this case if that was really the only thing? So anyhow, I was like, I could have been on the Britney gang. I could have been on this whole like the law army train for months and months and been grifting and railing about it and gaining subscribers over that.
There's a strong grift to be had there. I'm like, next time, next celebrity one, you got to jump on.
I know. But I'm always careful though.
You gotta get the little free Britney T-shirt with a plate and fork and spoon logo next to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Free Britney to eat. Free Britney one bite at a time. Something like that.
Freeing Britney one bite at a time.
I like it.
And STFU FFS says IMHO, or in my honest opinion, malicious med PII leak is like revenge prawn. Yeah, I think it's pretty malicious, and I think that it's designed to have a similar effect, in that you're trying to manipulate someone and to really back them into a very, very strong emotional corner.
If those facts are true, then that's bad.
Yeah. So, but anyhow, I mean, this has just been a particularly spicy case, and it sounds like the tides have really shifted in Britney's favor over the last, ever since she hired Matthew Rosengart, her new attorney, new-ish attorney, that she was finally allowed to hire an attorney, and she picked him. She chose well, it seems like. So that's been good so far for her. Also, Andy the Game Maker says, well, hello, friends. Podcast with Joe dropping soon. Video is done. Need to schedule release date with Joe. You know what? I have beef over this. I have a little bit of beef over
let's
this.
get it. There's some tea. I love it. Legal tea. Joe roasted me earlier, so it's his turn. All right, let's do it.
It's not necessarily Joe's fault.
Oh, come on. Can we blame it on Joe?
I blame it on Andy. Andy the Game Maker is my brother. And before, I haven't been on his channel. He has.
There you go.
He knows. He's sick of you. He's dealt with you his entire life.
I have had him on my channel. What the heck, bro?
We spent like 4.5 hours talking. It was I promised him an hour, and it just kept going. And he was really good. He is the ultimate salesman. Because by the time he's done, he's like, yeah, so I'm gonna come on your channel. I'm like, when is that gonna be? When is that? I'm like, fine, I'll nail you down. Okay. So he's actually coming on. He's coming on my stream on.
He knows
Saturday
the trick.
night.
The trick is to force it. You just gotta really make it
on
happen.
Camera. He learned from you, Joe.
He was really effective. So so I was like, okay, Saturday night it is. And so I'm gonna be, and he actually gave me homework, which I'm halfway through. He gave me homework. Yes. The homework was to watch Blade Runner.
Oh, that's a great movie. You haven't watched the original Blade Runner?
So I actually watched the original last night. He's actually requiring that I watch both that and Blade Runner 2049.
Not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah, there's really good humanities topics that you can draw out of this whole thing, which I plan on fleshing out with him on Saturday night. So in fact, I plan on making it like defining what is humanity, because I think it's really interesting. There are really interesting questions that are raised by that. what makes
I have a
human?
movie. I have a
That's
movie
a very
for that
legal
topic.
topic too. Like when do you attach rights to something? When does it gain rights? At what point would you prescribe rights?
I'll ask you guys. Would you say someone who's cloned is that they are entitled to all human rights?
Yes,
I would think so.
Human rights. Now here's the more interesting thing.
Yeah.
How much does the clone have access to the financial rights and other rights of its progenitor?
Like in a paternity,
because it's going to be a ward of the state. Situation. The clone is going to be a ward of the state if you just say, "Hey, the clone is on its own as soon as it's out of the vat." Right. Even if you're presuming the clone comes out as an adult, let's even presume it comes out as an adult. That's pushing it.
It wouldn't come as an adult.
No, but let's presume that, because if it comes out as a child, then there's a real issue of who's responsible for that clone. Is it the mom and dad? Well, what if there's just a dad? What if there's no mom? I mean, all sorts of issues here. And then you get into if it's a cyborg, whose DNA is it using? What if it's not using the DNA of its creator?
Well, then, so there have been some analyses.
The creator uses my DNA, so is it mine or is it the creator?
So if I create the clone, but I use Joe's DNA,
right?
Does Joe have to pay child support? Yes, right. Exactly. Clearly superior knows. So it's like if I pick Joe.
So this has actually been kind of analyzed in intellectual property cases coming out of artificial intelligence. I don't know if it was specific lawsuits or where it came down, but there was I remember hearing that the ultimate place where people fell was that any kind of patents, for example, that come out that are generated by AI are not owned by the AI. They're owned by the creator of the AI.
So the AI is a slave to the creator.
Yes.
Regardless of the level of sentience. So we have in a way, we have Dred Scotted the AI right now.
No, we haven't Dred Scotted because that implies it's a wrong decision. I think that's an accurate thing, because AI is something that's built and something that's I don't know. This is the whole, I don't want to ruin my episode.
No, I'm not going to ruin your episode. I'm hyping it. Like, this is a good question. Like, there's a debate here. There's an actual debate here.
Well, the question, past that threshold. That's you also have to ask the question as to whether or not the AI is sentient. If it's fully sentient, or if it's just running, if it's running particular programming.
Is it the
right?
Turing test? Is it the Turing test? You know the Turing test?
What's the Turing test?
Yeah, that's in Blade Runner.
Yes. It's the Dunning-Kruger in that one, right? That's the Dunning-Kruger test in that.
No, they call it the Void White or something like that.
The Void Comp. Is it Void Comp? No.
Oh,
they call it something like Void. It was Void something.
The chattel no.
Probably.
But it's pretty much it's supposed to gauge emotional response, or like that's in Blade Runner. But the Turing test is the real test, is that it pretty much that a human cannot distinguish the responses as responses coming from a human or a computer. Now we've already passed that in some cases with like chat bots and stuff like that. You can get an AI that you will think is a human, at least for a while. You might be able to eventually get around to it, but
I once had a girlfriend like that.
I did an engineer and I mistaked her for a computer. I do know that. I think it said Voight Camp is what Joe said. So
okay, yeah. Joe Quixotic said Voight Camp.
Voight Comp.
Okay.
Comp. Yeah, I knew it was some German name in there. I just got to get German when you get eugenic, but yeah.
Oh boy. Oh no.
I mean, it was an interesting concept. And in the beginning of Blade Runner, you watched the beginning of it, Joe. That's the intro. Is the difficulty in
the interview with the guy.
Andy the Game Maker says, I have successfully hacked the conversation. Yes, congratulations, Andy.
I like having you guys streams, because that's what you guys do, and Joe's really great about the humanities questions and really provoking those deep sort of thoughts. We can be surface level with our juvenile humor, but Joe is the real deep one here.
So, but another one you asked about, defining humanity. Another movie to use to talk about that question that you could use is Ad Astra, because I don't know, have you seen that with Brad Pitt?
No, Ad Astra.
Ad Astra, 2 words.
Space depression.
It's I mean it's not a it's
my 2-word summary.
I mean it does
sounds awesome.
But it's very 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 thought provoking. I mean, if you like for me, the entire time I was just analyzing, the similarities between humans and apes, and the ways in which we need society in order to retain our humanity. And the further and further we go away from other people and from Earth and from society, the less humane we get, and the more we can descend into darkness. And how sometimes you have to then come back in order to retain that humanity, or to regain that humanity if you've lost it. So it's very very thought provoking.
I will tell you that 3 of my all-time favorite movies are 12 Monkeys, Usual Suspects.
12 Monkeys is good.
The Usual Suspects is phenomenal, and Fight Club, and actually Snatch. All 4 of them.
Snatch is great. I love Snatch. That's one of the
all 4 of them probably rank in my top 10 movies all time, and they all feature Brad Pitt. So he's been in some
you got a thing for Brad Pitt.
Yeah, a little bit of a kick there.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. It's that I have a thing for Brad Pitt. So also, no, but they haven't. Tell me which of those movies is not a great movie. You never saw The Usual Suspects?
Oh, I've seen The Usual Suspects. That's
I
great.
haven't seen it. I have not. That's one I should see.
I mean, I'll say this. Like Lady Logic was like, I can't listen to this. There's just a constant flow of expletive like throughout the movie. There's literally, it's like a 2-hour movie, and like the rate of expletive is like 12 per minute. Like every 5 seconds is F this, S, just this and that. Everything is, but that's a phenomenal movie.
Here's the thing, Joe. They can't make movies like that anymore. That's the sad thing. They can never make that. They can never remake that movie because it's just that. And Kevin Spacey.
Well, right. I was gonna say no one looks at Kevin Spacey the same way anymore. But
I can watch movies like that, or was it American Beauty? Was the other one he was in that was pretty big? But
so I can watch that. You're saying they can't make a movie like that because why? Because they're ranking on him being
No. Remove Kevin Spacey. Pretend it was a different actor. I think that my take is that they cannot make movies with that level of raw, like expletiveness and realness. They can't make a movie like that, or for example, Reservoir Dogs or other stuff. Movie that was like back in the day. That's very gritty, very real. Even like a Pulp Fiction. They couldn't remake that nowadays because
I don't know.
No, the language. They really listen to it. Really listen to the language.
What about Eight? What was it? The Hateful Eight? That was a recent movie.
But the language is different. They've changed the language a lot. I mean, okay, we'll say one thing. Quentin Tarantino drops the N-bomb way too much in that. But that one aside, let's remove that one. Just the level of cursing in general and the level of like raw nature of the conversation, it just doesn't go over like that. Hateful Eight, they were more all stoic characters that didn't say as much. They weren't cursing like they were in that movie.
Yeah, I happen to be a big Tarantino fan. I love this.
I'm not standing for Tarantino. I'm just talking about movies where they curse a lot.
Yeah,
that's just ones came to mind.
And who's that actor from the Hateful Eight? He's from the one. He's in all the Tarantino movies. He plays like Mr. He's in Reservoir Dogs. He was in what? The British guy from the Hateful Eight.
Not Kurt Russell.
No. Kurt Russell's not British.
No, the British one. He had a TV series even where he was able to like read people and understand them. The chat's definitely going to know.
So Michael Madsen,
I hope
maybe?
so.
Not Michael Madsen.
No, he's
Michael Madsen is the ultimate psycho.
Timothy Roth. Timothy Roth.
Okay,
Timothy Roth,
I wouldn't have guessed that. That would have been not my. Oh, Lie to Me was the show. That would not have been my successful Jeopardy question. But L. Dallin also says, "Good logic. Go watch STTNG Measure of a Man."
STTNG.
TNG. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not familiar.
Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's probably whether or not Data is human.
And Lee brought it up in the chat here about like Squid Games. That's why that was big because the Korean film producers, they produce.
Don't
stuff
ruin
like
that for me. I still haven't seen it.
No. But I'm saying it's graphic and it's something that America would not make right now because no.
I don't know about that because it took fire in America. Like it like I saw articles about how Koreans were like, I don't understand why this is like so big elsewhere. But
so this is what Andrew's hitting on is and what you just mentioned, Alita, the two of you together.
Get with your media buddies, Joe.
Have basically what has basically pointed out to me that that we will look back at this historically as like the dead period of culture due to wokeism. That and I think you're correct when you say Legalbytes, that the money of the Squid Show, whatever, the Squid Games, and how there was so much success by being raw and real. And I mean, we really saw that evolve very much in the 90s. That was very much what Gen X was about, the generation right after mine, and about being raw, gritty. And we saw all these movies about, like, you know, portraying like the harshness of real life, whether it was Clerks or whether, you know, Finding Amy, whether it was Dazed and Confused and this more comedic type of thing, whether it was more of the harsher type movies in the 90s that evolved. And now you're right, Andrew, that's frowned on by woke Hollywood. But the money that Hollywood's getting from trying to go woke, I think Legalbytes is correct. We're gonna see, like 5 years from now, we'll go back to being real, because that's where the money is.
We'll have to. There's going to be no choice. Because the thing is, Hollywood may not want to do it. Hollywood will go bankrupt, and then, you know, Santa Barbara or wherever. I'm just saying, the new city that's Hollywood, whatever Hollywood is called after that. You know, not woke Hollywood. You know,
Daily Wire.
Exactly. Whatever. Maybe it is the Daily Wire. Who knows? I mean, we're laughing about it now, but for all we know, there's a giant market there. We've seen with movies that even movies when they don't go woke. I was talking with Nate about Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man, which I won't spoil for anybody, but I'm just saying, I don't think it's woke, and it did really good. And yes, like, we can debate about whether that's bait or whatever, but the point is, all Americans want is not woke, good movies, and we just haven't seen those, and we haven't seen realness and authenticity, and that's what people are starving for. And by the way, that's why people love us. That's why people love you, Alita, because you're honest and you're who you are. Joe, ain't nobody gonna say the stuff you're saying, Joe. So I mean, you're like I mean, that's the realest of the real right there. So that's why people love this, and that's why, you know, we have a place. It's
true.
So
and also, I mean, something else to keep in mind is that Hollywood usually goes in waves, right? I mean, there are trends that happen. It's you know, pirates, and then it's vampires, and then it's superheroes, and then it's, you know, something else. And so right now it's Hollywood is very much occupied by, like, 2 franchises, right? You've got, and it's all owned by Disney. And that's only going to take, you know, that's only going to last for so long, you know, because it towards the beginning, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it was like every single movie was a big hit. And it was like, you know, leading into this next phase. And then you get to the Eternals and people are like, womp, womp, you know? So you start to have movies that are, you know, part of this whole push to continue riding this wave out as far as it'll go. And then, you know, viewers are like, at some point, viewers decide that they've had enough and they want to turn to something else. The same thing is true of overall trends of styles of movies too. Like the 90s, the 80s had a very particular style of movie, right? It was like Top Gun. It was like
action hero,
you know, the Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
You know, like those kinds of you know, I think also
or else there are campy John Hughes type movies. Yeah.
Yes.
Like Breakfast Club.
Yes.
Well, the Breakfast Club was more of a 90s type of feel to it. But I mean, it basically it was everything ends up with like happy quirkiness. Was, you know, Hugh Grant type of, you know, stumbling around. He also was 90s, I think. But yeah, 80s was, you know, there was just so much. It was really bebop and preppies and
Indiana
yuppies.
Jones.
Yes. And it was
the original Star Wars, the real Star Wars.
Yeah,
I mean, that started in the 70s technically, but yeah.
It was very like, yeah, America wins in the end, always. That's basically what it was. Even Star Wars, where you don't have America.
That's another one.
Yeah, exactly. The hero always wins in the end. You know, the question's how he's going to get there. You know, that's basically what the 80s was. Rocky.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. All about like fighting the Soviet Union in the Cold War, and like, America comes out on top.
Hunter Red
But
October,
and then the 90s, it seemed like because that was an era where the Cold War was over by 91. And so most of the decade was kind of figuring out what to do with all of this like peace and like calm. And so it seemed like a lot of the movies then were like all about turning inward and like dealing with like the meaning of life, like American Beauty, like how do we deal with like living in the suburbs and this monotony that we have in our lives because things are so peaceful. And so so things kind of evolve.
Reality Bites, that's like is basically the description of the decade, and it's the classic movie where it's like Reality Bites.
Office Space, that's another great one.
Yes,
that's just classic, and it may be comedy, but it definitely describes what a lot of people feel when they're just trapped. And frankly, then we had the internet, and now we're in an era where we're creating these hard times that we're dealing with, and we're going to have to get through because we're in the thick of we had these easy times, and certainly now we're moving towards hard times, if arguably we're probably already in them. That's what I would argue. And
thinking about sort of like the I mean, if we go along with the timeline from the 90s into the 2000s, then we have The Matrix, where it's like dealing with the monotony and then realizing that there's something behind it, and there's something actually totally nefarious behind all of that monotony, and you've got to get out of it and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's these films develop over time, and there are certain trends that are appealing to the masses because of the things that are going on in the world. And so you're absolutely right, Legal Mindset. The hardships that are being created are going to have a reaction down the line, and that's probably going to find its way into the films and the TV shows that we watch.
Here's one that really was a kind of a red pill for me: Ghostbusters, because I just watched Afterlife and I realized Ghostbusters hits all of these time periods in all of these different trends. It hits pre-woke era with the Bill Murray, the OG, the really good stuff. I mean, and that was just the theme of it, the feel of it, very whimsical, very fun. It had kind of some spooky elements, but not really like horror, It was a fun movie. Then you hit the woke era with the 2016
the lady Ghostbusters,
the Lady Busters, which was all about being super woke, all about subverting, just all gender jokes, all that stuff. No actual storyline, complete empty shell for the SJW.
I was so disappointed because I love all of those actresses that are in that. Like, I love Kristen Wiig, and I wanted that to be a good movie. I wanted that to be, because Bridesmaids is one of my favorite movies.
It could have been.
I couldn't finish it. It was terrible. It was awful.
It could have been. But they made it into an SJW platform, and that
was lazy writing.
But all pop culture commentators, that was the beginning of the SJW wave. And then now with Afterlife, we're showing it going the other way, because they totally did not include any of that woke stuff in there, went the other way, and are saying, no, we're going to go back, but we're acknowledging that this happened. We're just moving past it. I'm like, we may be starting to see a turn. Maybe we're starting to see people think, hey, it's going to go the other way. I'm hopeful. I have a little bit of hope for the future. But that's just me. I think we can get past this, and we're showing and we're seeing signs that we're going to get past this. The fact that, once again, I talked about it, Joe Rogan does better than, MSNBC does better than Rachel Maddow. Even Tucker, I mean, is way higher rated than anybody else. Why is that? Because people view at least some authenticity, even if Tucker is mainstream, he's still more authentic than so many other sources of media.
But it's interesting to see how some films now are trying to use, or starting to try to use, some social media, like influencers and whatnot. Like I just saw over Christmas break, Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, that was good. I watched that one. That was fun.
It was good, and it was funny to see, all these Twitch streamers commenting on this character that Ryan Reynolds plays, and it's like they're in this dialogue like we're doing right now on a live stream, and it was just so funny because I had this thought. I was like, that'd be so weird if like someone approached me to be in some kind of a movie because I'm a YouTube lawyer commenting on this kind of thing, and then ask all of LawTube.
I do it 100%. I will 100% grift that. No problem.
I think that would be so much fun. I really do. I think that would be really fun. But it's like, it was just so funny to see these guys. And I was like, that's weird. That hits a little bit close to home now. Now that like people, there are people that watch my stuff. So, but anyway, but it's interesting to see how it's going to develop into the future.
I'm laughing at Jay Barr's comment. The A-team will be in jail in DC.
Oh yeah, that's so coming, right? The intersection, the all women A-team. That'd be amazing. God. That'd be such an amazing disaster. I don't know.
I mean, if it could be written well, then sure. Because hey,
I'm still astonished. Look, you thought you thought Lady Busters wasn't going to be a dumpster fire, that you actually plunked down $3 for it, or whatever it is that you plunked down for it, and that you like this is going to be a good investment of 2 hours of my time.
I think it was already on like a streaming service that I was already on or something. I can't remember. I didn't actually pay anything for it. I didn't go to the movies for it. No way. But no, but I genuinely enjoy the actresses that are in that movie. I thought, generally speaking, the idea of Chris Hemsworth's role in the movie would, had at least opportunity for funny jokes and whatnot, but they completely blundered all of the opportunities for humor in there.
I'm feeling totally vindicated on the whole. I'm feeling totally vindicated on the whole Brad Pitt thing right now. Okay, because at least I'm watching good movies. All right,
that's simping for the Lady Busters.
A Brad Pitt, yeah.
But I'm not.
You're like, oh, Kristen Wiig's in it, so I'm going to watch Lady Busters. No.
But I will also say that I hated her in the role that she played in Wonder Woman 2. That movie sucked.
Oh, yeah,
the first Wonder Woman, however, I enjoyed it. Although it did, and we're completely getting away.
This is good. This is good. We're talking about pop culture. We've been talking about pop culture tonight, and I think that at the core of pop culture are our movies, our music. Britney Spears was part of the quintessential part of the music, and movies are a quintessential part of our society, which, by the way, informs our laws. Because these things have a weird way of affecting people, changing the way they think. Then they get into power, and then they change the laws.
It's all connected.
So, in fact, it's probably movies, which is where Sotomayor gets her statistics from, because they're certainly not fact-based. So, I think it really is influencing our law. But
you're probably right. But
and I'll say this. I mean, there's a reason why you quote Mean Girls, a relatively all-female film that did fantastic, that is beloved film, amazing.
It is a cult classic.
Cult classic. And now that it's just like a universal classic. Every girl that grew up in that generation has seen that movie. It's great, but it's unapologetically female. Yeah. It's not trying to make those make them as men or something like that. Like paint the girls as guys in a thing.
And this is something I was touching on my live stream the other night, which is a lot of, it used to be that when a guy was anything less than alpha, so he was referred to as either being gay, and that's how traditionally they were referred to, or being like a girl or something like that, something effeminate. And I think that may have led to a mistake where we basically say that someone a dude who is not genuinely have an alpha type of persona, that he is womanly, when that's not true at all. It's that you're just not a man. It's not like you all of a sudden now become like you're great at being a woman. You suck at being a woman also. It's just that you're just not a man. But because we typically said, well, we think of opposites. So if you're not a man, you're a woman. No, it's not that you're a woman. You suck at being a woman, which is why if you're trying to say oh, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to go be a woman, you're not going to be good at as a woman either. So that's my point, is that we've set that up by basically saying anyone who's not genuinely a man is a woman, when really being feminine has certain strengths and powers to it, which are unique to women. And that's the real celebration of women, is when we recognize the beauty and strength of being a genuine woman. And that's why I think we sort of fell into it because of how we categorized anyone who is not really acting like a man as if he's acting like a woman, when he's not acting like a woman. He's just not a man. And that's an important distinction for us to understand as far as looking at people in a healthy type of way. But
there's nothing wrong with having movies like Mean Girls and Legally Blonde that are unapologetically female.
That was 100%. Amazing. That was an amazing movie. That was a great movie.
And people
Which one?
still watch
Legally Blonde or Mean Girls or both?
Mean Girls. I never watched Legally Blonde. I was like, this is just. I think it's going to be like. I was worried it would just make my legal sensibilities just my gut vomit. Like I was like, I'm gonna vomit if I watch this movie.
Early on in my career, I did a breakdown video on how ridiculous Legally Blonde is, but that doesn't mean it's not a fun movie. But it's like there's so many points in which I'm like, this is ridiculous.
I like Clueless. I like Clueless.
I love Clueless.
I was like, Clueless is a very funny movie.
But that also is an adaptation of Shakespeare.
It is?
Uh-huh.
Which
Emma.
Shakespeare?
The book, Emma. Oh no, sorry, not Shakespeare. Not Shakespeare. That's Dickinson, I guess. Emma.
Oh. I'm not classically read. You would think I would be, but I'm not classically read.
Just partly illiterate.
No, I actually enjoy Shakespeare.
One of those that was,
I enjoy Shakespeare, but I never really
I think it was
Dickens, not Dickinson, right?
Yeah, Emily Dickinson. Yeah, I believe so. That was Emma. So actually, now that I think about it, it was 10 Things I Hate About You. I think was supposed to be based on Taming of the Shrew.
Taming of the Shrew. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so that also is another part of like one of these eras, right? Where they had all of these movies that were like adaptations of like classical literature.
Yeah.
And whatnot. But I would love to see that come back. Little Women was good. I really liked Little Women, the most recent adaptation of it.
But we will have. I mean, there's always a push for one thing, and then it goes too far, and then there's a correction in everything, in politics, in culture, and in the law. When we infringe on these rights to a certain period, we now see the pushback, right? We see people, for example, with self-defense. We see when we're pushing it too far, there's going to be a correction. Just the matter is when and where and how. But there always will be a correction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyhow,
so I'm glad I joined.
Yeah, I'm glad you came back. And if you do want to watch Ad Astra and talk about that one,
or Legally Blonde,
or Legally Blonde, I could go in either direction.
If you change your name to Legalbytes, I will watch Legally Blonde.
That's not that big of a change for her. She has to add an LY, and that's all.
That's my point. I'm not asking for a lot. If you'll make that investment, because that's what I think you should have named yourself, because that would have been an artistic way of differentiating and yet calling to mind. Legalbytes.
It's done.
Do you see that?
No. The whole channel. The whole channel.
Oh, yeah, the channel. That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot. There's merch now. That's a lot.
Legalbytes.
I mean, I've got a whole LLC that I made for it.
Oh man! Oh,
do you have an LLC? I don't have an LLC for Good Logic yet, and I do, but not for the. Do you have one?
Yeah, I do. It's a registered LLC. I've got all the filings and everything, the annual filings, and that's how you can elect for an S corp for tax purposes.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I really need to do this. I actually just got myself a PO box for Good Logic, just because people decided for some reason or another they want to send me stuff, and it feels weird giving them my home address. So I was like, you know what? Let me get a PO box here. And then they were asking me, is this for residential business purposes? And I was like, I really should have a corporation. I'm actually starting to make a couple of shekel out of this thing. I should probably incorporate.
Yeah.
But,
rub those two shekels together and create an LLC.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's actually not too complicated.
Easy.
So
I know.
Even you can do it.
Thank you.
So anyhow, but I think that about does it.
Yeah.
So this has been a wonderful, wonderful live stream. Thank you for everyone that joined us from the beginning. Thank you to Legal Mindset, aka Spicy Mindset. Thank you to Good Logic, aka Joe Neerman, and Uncivil Law, who was here for a full 2 hours earlier. This has been really, really great. And also, thank you to the mods. It's been a minute since I gave a shout out to the mods, but thank you so much for keeping things running. I saw that there was some spicy spam that got into the chat for a minute there.
As a
Andrew,
sign of success.
Andrew, I should get you on my channel sometimes. Have your people talk to my people.
Okay, let's talk. Yeah, we'll talk. I'll send you a letter. I'll send you a letter. I'll translate it from Korean for you. I'll be nice.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
All right.
Take care, guys.
See you guys.
See you guys.